Call the meeting to order. Good morning. Long time no see. So hope everybody had a good 4th of July. We're back to business. I'd like to call the meeting to order and call on Pastor Jerry Ward with Lighthouse Tabernacle to lead us in the invocation. And our Pledge of Allegiance to the United States flag and the Texas flag will be given by Kent McAlar. All right. Assistant City Attorney. So, Pastor, if you would, please, sir.
Father God, we're thankful today to live in this great city. We're thankful for your hand upon it. We ask that you continue to give us prosperity. Bless this council, that they make all the right decisions. Lord, we ask for the crime to go down, the children and education to be great. Let this be a city that people would thrive to come to. And we ask all these things. We know that you're able to bring all these things to pass. Keep our first responders safe. For, Lord, they're out there doing your work. We ask, Father, that you would just go forth and bless all that we do today. And we'll give you the glory, honor, and praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in honoring the Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, and indivisible.
Ms. Huerta, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mayor Joe McComb.
Here.
Council members Roland Barrera.
Here.
Rudy Garza.
Here.
Paulette Guajardo. Present. Gil Hernandez.
Here.
Michael Hunter.
Here.
Ben Molina.
Here.
Everett Roy.
Here.
Greg Smith.
Here.
City Manager Peter Zanoni.
Here.
City Attorney Miles Risley.
Here.
Mayor and Council, a quorum of the council and the required charter officers are present to conduct the meeting.
All right. We have a special guest in the audience today we want to recognize, and I think this would fall under cruel and unusual punishment. But with school fixing to start, he's got a free day, but he's here to observe his mother at City Council. Jude Guajardo is here, and we're glad you're here. So we want to keep your mother in line today. Will you do that for us? She'll be on good behavior, so you'll be impressed. All right, well, we're going to have some proclamations and commendations. We'll go in this order, and if you're here, the first one will be for the National Disability Voter Registration Week, and then a proclamation on the National Parks and Recreation Month, and then some recognition of some folks that have the fastest boats in the water. So we'll be right down here. And who's going to help me on these? Do we have?
Ben's coming up.
Doing the first. It's always fun to do these sort of things. Somebody asked me, said, how come you always have council members come down there? I said, you scared to do those? And no, I like to get the council involved and kind of pass them around so everybody participates. So that's, we try to do it on a rotation basis, but sometimes somebody pops up if they're the ones that introduce the resolution or the recognition. So, but anyway, we do involve our council, and we're glad you're here. And this is for National Disability Voter Registration Week. Got to get, let's see. Well, that's next year's all the stuff going on. They're campaigning too early. Okay, Ben?
Thank you, Mayor. In July, people with disabilities and our supporters celebrate the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, or the ADA. There are over 50 million people with disabilities of all ages living in communities throughout the United States. The disability community has a critical interest in policies enacted at local, state, and national levels that affect the integration of people with disabilities, young and old, into our communities. Getting the disability community involved in influencing public policies is essential if these policies are to meet the real needs of people with disabilities to live in the community. Voting is one way for the disability community to exert their influence at local, state, and national elections. Rev up, America. Register, educate, vote. Use Your Power is a national effort to encourage state and local disability community voting coalitions. Members of national disability rights communities are organizing a National Disability Voter Registration Week, July 15th through the 19th, 2019.
Now therefore, pursuant to the power vested in me as the mayor of the city of Corpus Christi, I do hereby proclaim July the 15th through the 19th National Disability Voter Registration Week in Corpus Christi, and encourage the growing involvement of the disability community in our political process. So I hope if you're watching out there, they can give you some information other than, I guess, going online to register, or however you do that. Somebody can speak to that just quickly. And you're the person going to do that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Tell us your name.
My name is Melvin Kimbrell, and I've been a member of Adaptive Corpus Christi. We're we're a member that we're trying to get everybody to get out there and educate them, get them to register to vote, and use their power. You know, get back involved in the political process. Our interpreter this morning is Miss Tony Padilla, and we're along here with Coastal Bend Center for Independent Living, and some of our partners are the League of Women Voters, the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Center, and the Oasis Center for Mental Health and Intellectual Disabilities. And we are advocating to a large population of eligible voters that are disabled to become more involved in our political process, and how their vote is largely to their benefit in matters that directly impact their daily lives. We are here to ensure that they have the opportunity to register to vote, that they are educated in the voting process, and that voting is accessible to them without any undue restraints. Register, educate, and vote. Use your power. And I want to thank our city leaders for their year-round support and our efforts to be treated as any other citizen in our great sparkling city by the sea. Thank you very much for honoring our campaign and designating July 15th through July 19th, 2019 as National Disability Voter Registration Week here in Corpus Christi, Texas. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you. And there's your proclamation that you can have there, and we appreciate that. Not only do we want to encourage those with disabilities to vote, but folks that don't have disabilities also need to be encouraged to vote. So we want everybody to get a chance to participate, and we appreciate it very much. So let's get a picture here, if we can kind of come on in. Who else is, you need some more coming down? You got some more? All right. And thank them for what they're doing. It's really important.
Oh, sorry. Lost my place for a second.
Already. 1, 2.
Yeah, thank you.
Gil is helping you on this one.
Hi, how are you? Thank you.
All right, our next one is recognition of National Parks and Recreation Month. If you're here for that, come on down. And while they're coming down, let me encourage all of us here in the chambers and who may be watching on television, who may see this later. Every one of us can make a contribution to a more beneficial and enjoyable visit to our national parks, our state parks, or our city parks. If you would, just bag your trash while you're there and take it with you when you leave. That would be a great help, and it could very well save you lots of money, because if you leave it there, we got to pay somebody to go pick it up. So I'll throw in that little free advertisement for keeping our beaches and our parks clean. Mel, who's going to do this? Oh, you're going to do this. All right. Gil Hernandez, our city council member, is going to do this one, and thank you.
Okay, everybody, come on in. Bring it in.
There's room for everybody.
Don't be shy. We won't bite. Okay, National Parks and Recreation Month. Parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout this country, including Corpus Christi. The programs are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region. Parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. Parks and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property tax values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of business, and crime reduction. Our parks and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of the air we breathe, provide vegetative buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. Our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors.
Now therefore, pursuant to the powers vested in me as the mayor of the city of Corpus Christi, I do hereby proclaim July 2019 as National Parks and Recreation Month in Corpus Christi, and urge every resident to take time during this month to recognize the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. And Jamel, I'll hand you the proclamation and give you a chance to say a word. This is our Parks and Recreation Director for the city of Corpus Christi, and we want you to help him be successful by keeping our parks clean.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, Councilman Hernandez. Parks and Recreation Month is so important. Throughout the country, Parks and Recreation Month is celebrated for a very long time now. We're very privileged here in Corpus because our park system is accredited. And that happens with all the folks that are behind me. So we have superintendents in our finance, in our parks, in our recreation units, our beach operations. So during Parks and Recreation Month, we encourage increased activity. We're busy all year round, but during Parks and Recreation Month, the month of July, we picked, I suppose, the longest of all the months, 31 days to celebrate it, to have more of an increase of our swim lessons, our beachfront activities, and so forth. So my team told me don't carry on here, but I certainly could. We love our parks, and as the mayor said, help us keep it clean, and we want to contribute always to our property values and the economic growth of the city too. So thank you all very much, and team, thank you guys very much. You guys are awesome.
Michael, you're far back.
I'm on the front.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't see you. Smile, everyone. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Thank you all very much. I love the shirts, man. Oh, man,
It looks good. Those do look pretty good. Uh-oh. Good to see y'all. Mr. Lewis, good to see you.
All right, the next one is Fish for Life. I overlooked this one, I guess, when I go down the list. I apologize. Fish for Life. And Councilmember Harlow's going to help me with this one. Pressure's on so she doesn't mess it up with her son here watching her.
Yes, I do. Thank you, sir. Hand me that. Yeah, scoot on over. Okay. Good morning, everyone. So this particular organization is extremely important and dear to me because I've known this fellow for 20 years, and the work they do just is amazing, unbelievable, and very much needed. So I'm more than grateful for everything you do, and I'll tell you a little bit about that now. So in 2009, Chuck Goodwin, to my right, started Corpus Christi Fish for Life, a faith-based nonprofit organization that works with at-risk children and their families. Working with the business, school, and church communities, Fish for Life offers leadership, guidance, and support to cultivate hope and transform the way youth see themselves, their families, and their future. Many inner-city children are living in impoverished conditions with inadequate housing, little or no food, and a shortage of clothing. Fish for Life helps meet the basic needs of children and youth so they can develop intellectually, artistically, and socially by supporting young artists through school and citywide art contests. It also establishes and maintains mentorship programs, establish and cultivates relationships by providing high-quality, supervised professional sporting events and half-day fishing experiences, and identifies and expands services as needed. The Fish for Life leadership team includes Chuck Goodwin, the president, Will Deaton, vice president, Lee Bailey, treasurer, and Tom Campbell, Kimberly Moore, John McNeil, Steve Keenan, Alex Garcia III, Jeannie Keenan, Alan Harwell, and Dr. Morris Porter, who all serve as directors and coordinators. Fish for Life has sponsored several events for the youth, including the Coastal Bend High School Art Contest, the first annual Wildlife Fish Hatchery Tour, and fishing trip, annual elementary back-to-school shopping trip, along with providing scholarships to youth for events they participate in. We commend Fish for Life for their hard work and dedication in mentoring at-risk youth. Thank you for cultivating hope and making a difference in transforming lives. They are our future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. I'd like to give this to you and have you say a word, and we appreciate all you do and will continue to do.
Thank you, Mayor and Paulette, Council. I'd like to just point out Dr. Portis. Dr. Portis just really anchors our board. His experience and influence in the city is invaluable. I can't say enough about Lee and his photography, and he keeps our website. Will back here, his experience with nonprofits and business is invaluable. Tom lives in Austin, and he brings a lot of influence from that area. Alex is our volunteer coordinator. Jeannie is our mentorship coordinator, and Kim is Miss Everything. Thank you so much. We could have all the money in the world, but we couldn't do it without this team.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I know.
Thanks, guys.
Y'all want it?
She's got the statues.
Yes, he is. He was. All right. As you know, we had a big celebration with the Mayor's 4th of July Big Bang, and the one of the activities during the 4th of July celebration was a regatta, and here we have the first, second place winners in the first place sailing class. Make sure I get this right here. So, but we want to congratulate them and appreciate their efforts to just add another area of entertainment and participation in the 4th of July and helping us to celebrate that. So the, now let me see if I get this right. Now y'all help me here, so I don't mean to. John Bell, as I live and breathe. Okay, the first place working sales class, what does this mean?
They're not crazy.
Oh, they're not crazy. Okay, basics. Basics, all right, they use all the sales. First place working sales class, Chuck Griffin's Hunter 45DS Huntress 2 is the winner, came in first place. All right, well, congratulations. So based on John's definition, you're the only sane one in the group? All right, the second place all sales class, John Bell's J105 Kinderspell 2. Is that correct? Well, congratulations. All right. And the first place all sales class, Alec Harris's J80 Defying Gravity. So congratulations to that. And we want to commend you and congratulate you on that, but really they are the group that gets behind the Etchell sailing events that we had this year, which was a fabulous opportunity for our community. And last year we had, what was it? Youth World Championship sailing. I think next year we got something else, right?
Finn Nationals.
Huh?
So we're booked up, and we're going to continue to be booked up for Corpus. The Finn Nationals will be next year. Following that will be the J22 Worlds. Following that will be the J24 Worlds. And we cannot thank the City Marina enough. Gina does not get the recognition from us that she deserves, but they're out there helping us every single way make the city shine worldwide in our sailing world.
Well, we appreciate all that you do, and we want to thank them for that, because that gets us really worldwide recognition, as well as those folks spend a few bucks when they come to town. So we always like that. So let's get a picture of these sailors, and then we'll be on about our business. Are we all here? Yes. Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate all you guys do.
Alex.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Al. Good job.
Y'all did do a great
Good job, folks.
Thank y'all.
Great job.
We may pick one of our council members to go out on a sailboat. 21, oh my.
A lot of fun.
What are we getting volunteered for?
Sailing?
We're invited to go out next year on one of their boats. Get your deck shoes ready.
Oh, no. Oh. Yeah. I smell a lawsuit.
Yeah.
You go to the Eccles deal?
Yeah, I went down there for something, yeah. Jim Den had a boat and took us out and we watched it. Pretty interesting.
Oh, that's a nice boat he's got.
Yeah, it is.
He keeps it.
Okay, well, we've got just 1 or 2 minutes before our public comment period. Let's, okay. Let's go ahead and get the minutes taken care of if we could, if we'll have a motion and approval for the minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second for the minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Let's, Mr. Manager, could we wait? I don't want to give you shorted time on your city manager's report. We'll get our public comment out of the way, and then we'll come back and pick up the city manager's report.
That's fine, Mayor.
Okay. The sign-up sheet in the back for public comment, city secretary probably has it. Do you have that now? All right, then I'd like to call on the city secretary and the city attorney to introduce us to the public comment period. And for those of you here, if you signed up for anything on the agenda, you can speak during the public comment period or during the agenda, and particularly if you're here on items 5 through 8, those are zoning cases that you'll be given an opportunity when those are considered if you want to. If not, you can speak to them now. So can't speak at both times, but you can speak now or then. So Mr. Risley or Ms. Huerta?
Citizens are authorized and encouraged to present their views to the council on agenda action items or during the petitions part on non-agenda city-related matters. However, such should be done in a factual, precise presentation, and questions of council or staff are inappropriate. Loud, boisterous, profane, or obscene language or behavior is not allowed.
I'm City Secretary Rebecca Huerta. I'll be conducting the public comment period today. I'd like to remind everyone that a recording is made of the meeting. Please speak into the microphone located at the podium and state your name and address. If you choose to speak during this public comment period regarding an item on the agenda, you may do so. You will not be allowed to speak again, however, when the council is considering the item. Citizen comments are limited to 3 minutes. On the podium, you'll see a timer underneath the base of the microphone. It will let you know exactly how much time you have left to speak. Once your time is up, a buzzer will go off, and then you can conclude your comments. If you have a petition or any information pertaining to your subject, please present it to the City Secretary. At this time, I'll start with public comment. The first person on the list is Tony Hartwell.
Good morning, council member, mayor, and our new city manager, and those that are here. To make a long story short, I'm not here for a proclamation. I'm here to complain. The number one is that we have the police department, code enforcement, animal control, and the city call center. I am sick and tired of the call center putting me on hold for 45 minutes saying I'm the next caller online, and then 45 minutes they get on there and say, who is this? And then they disconnect me. They did it 3 times to me this past week. That's number one. Number two, which was supposed to be taken care of, remember, ma'am? We discussed this years ago before Hurricane Harvey destroyed my place. The second thing is code enforcement. It's not going out there. It's taking them 2 to 3 to 4 weeks to do a call that I make a complaint on about a landlord trying to rent a building that has been condemned and should be allowed to be renting to people as renters. These landlords need to be checked into, and they need to be notified they are not allowed to be renting duplexes and apartments that are not up to city code. That's number two. Number three, animal control. I've called them, I guess, 5 times in 2 months to complain about an elderly dog that's at 1117 Central Street in SPID that has not been given shelter, not food and water, weeks at a time. And I took pictures of that dog being in a storm. The dog is living under vehicles that they have a little kind of an auto repair shop there, okay? And to me, city control for animal control, they need to get their act together. I mean, I'm paying city taxes for all of this, okay? And all council members, as well as the mayor, is responsible to make sure that these departments, along with the new city manager, because he doesn't know this until today, need to do their jobs and check on these individual agencies. The last is the police department. At Waldron and SPID, I have been hit in the last 5 years, and I've been here since '87. I've been rear-ended by vehicles running the red light, hitting the vehicles, and not using the crosswalks where these homeless people are just jaywalking left and right. And to me, there's going to be a major accident. I almost got hit 3 times this past week, and I told 2 motorcycle police officers that they need to have a unit. If they can have radars on SPID running radars on off-job time where they're getting paid to do this, then they can also have units sitting over there on Waldron, on the side of SPD on Waldron, and also on the other side coming from the island, going to the island. I guarantee you, ladies and gentlemen, if I get hit and I get damaged to a point that I cannot move, you're going to be in one hell of a lawsuit. Because I reported this to the police department, and it takes an act of Congress just to be able to talk to the chief of police. Okay? Tony C. Hartwell is my name, and I don't care. I have 29 years of federal and state law enforcement background, and I'm tired of seeing all my tax dollars going to waste because it's not being taken care of properly. And if the media want to report this, fine. Okay, and if they don't, that's okay too. But I'm letting you know now as of today.
Thank you, sir.
Oh, Mr. Hartwell, can you state your address for the record also?
I'm sorry?
Can you state your address for
I
the
live in
record?
Flower Bluff. I give you my address, I'll probably get hounded and retaliated. But I live in Flower Bluff and been here since '87.
All right. Next is Scott Hunsaker.
With council's permission, I'd like to defer until the agenda item that I'm interested in.
All right, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Gus Livaditis.
Hi, good afternoon, folks. I'm Kostas Libididis, and I'm here to talk about the Everhard construction that's upcoming, from what I understand,
Can you state your address, please?
later this year. 5334 Everhard Road.
Thank you.
The construction project is, from what I understand, supposed to be 18 months long, and I'm not sure exactly if it will be shorter or longer, because they said other projects like it have finished sooner, but other projects have gone a lot longer. I know of the Corona experience. I know what's going on Galahar and Weber. I know of the Yorktown. A lot of them that just seem to be sitting for long times. I want to bring up some, I'm here talking about the business aspect of it, being on Everhard Road, and I am going to bring up a couple of examples of people who have told me their experience. One is at Silverado on Galahar and Weber. The barrels that were put out to direct traffic have kind of cut off a little bit on the entrance to the property over there. The owner has gone and moved the barrels, and he said he wasn't getting any business when the barrels were there. He kind of moved them a little out of the way. He said that he filled up and had very good business after that because people were able to get in, and they complained to him that they weren't able to get in otherwise. He had to reach out to the city officials because he actually got in trouble for moving the barrels. I don't think you should be able to, I mean, I understand you can't do what you want, but that's not cool. Beamer's owner yesterday told me that his entrance was closed for 3 months, and that caused financial stress because they couldn't get the entrance open. He actually went out of business because of this. Gladys Gutierrez is here. She has the Jalisco restaurant, and her family has, next to ours. We're concerned, obviously, about digging up the street and what we see in other areas where they're digging up the street and nothing is being done, or they're in another area. I recommend that when Corpus Christi does digging up jobs of construction on the streets, any company that's doing any work should do no more than 1 or 2 jobs at once. They don't start another job until they finish what they're already working on. That'll allow them to focus their manpower and their work and their labor in those areas and get them over with. To dig up areas and have no one there for long periods of time is unacceptable. And I also want to, I know that they're going to restrict left turns on lights, but I would like to know how they're going to accommodate left turns to go into businesses.
Thank you, sir, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Pat Lawler.
Good morning, Council, Mayor. My name is Pat Lawler. I live at 3801 Sturman. I'm here because of the Staples project. They lowered the sidewalks on that side when they redoing those sidewalks on Staples. They lowered them 5 inches. And Ben's been out there, he's seen it. And AEP's come set some telephone poles, one at the corner of my fence in the back and one in the front. And they left the pole leaning up against my fence. It took about 2 months to get it straightened out. The pole in my driveway is, they backed a hydro excavation truck and trailer in my driveway. This was right after the rain we had 4 or 5 months ago. And when they left ruts in my yard. And I said, well, what about this? And I came home and I run them off. They had no permission to be on my yard, in my property. And also, I've got a problem with this elevation of the sidewalk in my property. It's 5 inches higher. And I've asked everybody, Ben has said that it needed some looking into. Well, the inspectors said it needs some looking into. The people's doing the RATEC, some of them people, it needs a concrete berm put up there, the grass pulled out, filled in, and put the grass back. And that way it won't erode my property. Plus, most of all, I'm losing 5 inches of support in my fence when they've dug it down. I don't have, I can take my boards right now and 4x4s and just wiggle them. And I just finished that fence right after the storm. I can't get any help from the city. Their answer to, it's not in the budget. Well, I've looked at some of these projects, and Doddridge, and they've got concrete berms between the sidewalk and the deals to keep the erosion down. Some of Staples on the other face is done. I drove by one yard the other day on Staples, right past Bronner Parkway, going towards Weber, and it's that low, the property line is below the fence. I just need some help with this. Every time I call, they say...
Thank you, Mr. Lawler.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Zanoni, staff can follow up with them on that.
We'll follow up with the individual. We will follow up with you. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Jack Gordy.
Yes, I'm Jack Gordy, and I live at 4118 Bray Drive, and I'm here for the same reason that I've been coming since August of 2014. I gave all of you a copy of the American Disability Act, the section that talks about block sidewalks. I don't know if you read it, but it was very, very, very clear that the only sidewalks that are exempt from being widened is if it is impossible to widen the sidewalk. Well, the ones I've been talking about are not impossible, but the city's not doing nothing about it. Like I said, this city of Corpus Christi has been violating the American Disability Act since October of 1995. This city council don't care that you're violating the federal law. I think the city council should, especially if you want a 4-year term. If you want not even worried about the American Disability Act, and you don't care that you're violating the federal law, you don't even deserve a 2-year term. Not plus a 4-year term. Now, right there, he just passed it out to you, a copy of the contact information for the American Disability Act in the Justice Department. Don't believe what the city attorney is telling you, because anybody that says that block sidewalks, the disabled people don't have to use the sidewalk, they can go in the street or the parking lot, that don't even sound right. That means somebody don't care. And like I said, there's over 200 block sidewalks in this city. Over 200. Not just the 3 I've been talking about. You drive around, all of you gets a car allowance. Use it, drive around the city and look. and you'll see tree limbs that's hanging down some places that high, and some places are dragging the sidewalk. Kids, nobody can even walk down the sidewalk, much less disabled people. Not when the tree limbs are supposed to be 7 feet above the sidewalk. And like I said, there's probably 200 places in this city that the tree limbs are blocking the sidewalk. But nobody is doing anything about it. And don't tell me code enforcement don't drive around during the week. If they can't see, the city needs to buy them some glasses so they can see. They need to do something about the tree limbs. Not just ignore them. That's what they're getting paid for. So this city council needs to take action and do what you were elected for.
Thank you, Mr. Gordy.
Miguel Saldana.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council members. Miguel Saldana, 4553 Moon Lake Ridge. I'm here to discuss the building permit issue, fees. I know state law recently passed a law saying that you could not charge fees for residential based on valuation. So the city brought an ordinance to the council to adopt a fee ordinance based on square footage. In January, I submitted a fourplex, which falls under the commercial ordinance, and they charged me $900 for the permit. After talking to staff and going through it, reviewing it, they recommended that it be a duplex. So I submitted a plan for a duplex, and I get a fee earlier this week or last week for $845. Got my client, got his check, went to pay it. When I got there, they say, no, this fee is wrong. I said, well, this is the fee I got. They said, no, it was incorrect. The correct fee is $1,978. I got a fee for $900 for a fourplex, same square footage, because it's remodeling a building, existing building on Sam Rankin Road for apartments. Well, now it's going to be a duplex, not 4 units. So now, because it's classified as a residential, it falls under the residential permit structure. So my question, and I couldn't get an answer when I went to Development Services, is how did a commercial project of 4,800 square feet get $905 fee, and a duplex residential permit fee $1,978? The answer I got from Development Services was, oh, it's state law. And I corrected them and I told them, no, state law only say you cannot charge based on valuation. The person kind of smiled and said, oh, it was the city council. Well, the city council only acted on staff's recommendations. So they just kind of shrugged their shoulders. Now, maybe the fee is correct, $1,900, based on the way it should be. But my question is, why the disparity between $900 for a commercial and $1,900 for residential? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Saldana.
Well, that's the city manager and his staff to respond to that, if you would, please. Okay.
Brian Watson.
Good afternoon, Council, Mayor. My name is Brian Watson. I live at 5813 Hugo Drive in Corpus. I have not had much of a chance to do any follow-up on this homeless veterans initiative that I've discussed with you briefly, more than briefly, but still working on that. Going to try to get some media help to begin convincing people in a position to make a difference that we should at least try to do that. And Abilene is successful in that regard, and now they're trying to find housing for every homeless individual, regardless whether or not they're veterans. So hope you won't mind my coming and bringing that to your attention. And that's one thing too. I'm not here to indict or even criticize anybody, but I'm concerned about the backlash by the homosexual community against one of our commissioners who has taken a stand against what they are doing. And I don't know her or the issue well enough to know whether or not I would endorse what she's doing, but I think she's on the right track. And I've lived in Houston, spent a fair amount of time in California. I've seen all the weird, kinky stuff I care to tell. We don't need that here. And I will say we're concerned about backlash. I do know that a good number of the members of the Nazi Party in Germany were homosexuals. They're in the 30s and 40s, so perhaps there was some backlash on a larger scale than most people realize. And I just think we shouldn't encourage that kind of thinking. We don't need that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Michael Miller.
My name is Michael Miller, 51 Camden Place. Mayors, members of council, thank you for allowing me to speak today. I just wanted to talk about item number 20. I've reviewed the resolution and the April 22nd memorandum presented to council about the evaluation process of $125,000 per lane mile. I'm not here to argue whether asphalt's better than concrete or vice versa, but a lot of people ask me what my thoughts are, and my thoughts are it's like carpet and ceramic tile. Carpet is soft on the feet and cheaper, and ceramic tile is more expensive but easier to clean. And that's a good analogy for asphalt versus concrete as far as our roads go. But it kind of boils down to, my concern is how this evaluation criteria was arrived at, because some lanes are 12 feet wide, some lanes are 10 feet wide, and the difference on a 4-lane or a 5-lane 4-mile project is about 39 cents a square foot based on this evaluation criteria, and that swing could represent up to $416,000 worth of difference in cost. So I'm kind of recommending or suggesting that maybe you take another look at this and look at it based on a percentage of the cost of the work. I also looked at the life cycle costs, and the data that was presented in the April 22nd memorandum assumes that a seal coat at year 7 costs the same as a seal coat at year 35. That's not a good assumption, and I think one way to resolve some of this is maybe whenever, because the city has limited funds, and so maintenance is always an issue, and but we're really good at passing bonds. So maybe if you used the concrete as a basis for the calculations for the bonds, and then reevaluated the selection criteria, number one, you'll have more money left over from the bonds for proposed maintenance and on whether you choose concrete or asphalt. But I just think it would be a better way of approaching this as opposed to just using this $125,000 number, because there's so many things that can change in commodities. Price of oil affects asphalt, price of steel affects concrete, price of the raws that go into the concrete affects the price. So I think this needs a little more consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Margaretta Fertilla.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council, City Manager, and everybody else. I am here today to talk about the minimum consumption of water. So I asked many times that we can put it in agenda. And if you look to the Code of Ordinances section, Article 3, Section 5550 and 50 to 5549, you can see that minimum consumption of water, it's really bit accorded. I mean, if you have a minimum consumption, let's say $13, then you have the wastewater $36. Well, if you're not home and the water is like minimum consumption, why do you have to multiply with 3? So to me, it's a very, like a unusual way to, to calculate the minimum consumption. Also, another question, and maybe I can refer somebody that can help me where I can find an answer. For the garbage, pick up the garbage, is it any way that the residents can use another company than the city? Like a few years ago, we had, from some apartments, we had Republic, so it was way down. The price is like, here is probably $24, $30, but I don't know if it is something that it's mandatory for each citizens to have that, garbage pickup by the city, or we can do business with the Republic. That will be another question, because to me, I think that this is very expensive too, comparing with this private company, I would say. That's one issue. And another, if you like somebody to look into that and put it in agenda, because we need is a code of ordinance that has to be reviewed. And I promise that is no way to measure like they said, we have this device and go into the computer. It's not true, because again, if you're not home, you're going to see that you have the same bill. Just experience that like 1 month ago. I wasn't there, so I have the same bill that I was there. So it's no way that somebody from the water department, it's right. So utility business office, they do the best they can do, but I think that something has to be done to the water department. That's very, not honest way to do it. So I appreciate if somebody will just step and put this minimum consumption of water and review this department. And I know that with the garbage, somebody can, maybe assistant city manager, that she's like always there, Ms. Plomarity, she can help us with that. So I appreciate, I'm waiting for about 1 year somebody to put it in agenda, so I appreciate if we can do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
And those are all the individuals who have signed up. So as a courtesy now, if there's anyone who did not have an opportunity to sign up and would like to speak, if you would indicate so now, I'd appreciate that. So no one, I don't see anyone indicating that. So at this point, we'll conclude the public comment period. Thank you.
All right, I'd like to go back to agenda item F, City Manager's comments and update on city operations.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Mayor and members of the council, I just have a couple things this morning to brief you on. The first is the Phillips 66 project, and it's more to make you aware of a public comment event that Phillips 66 is holding or hosting. You've heard a little bit about this project. The mayor and I met with Phillips 66 last week, and on July 11th, I sent you a memo that kind of described their project, as well as provided you some of the public comment options that Phillips 66 is planning for the community. Just as some background, we may know that Phillips 66 is a Houston-based refinery firm, and they're seeking federal approval from the Coast Guard as well as the Maritime Administration for an offshore oil terminal project. P66 is proposing to construct and operate this offshore crude oil deep water port facility. The facility would be located in federal waters near Mustang Island. And the Deepwater Export Facility would consist of 2 buoy systems, about 56 miles of new pipeline infrastructure, and a booster station as well on Harbor Island. The city is not intimately involved, but we want to be mindful of this because it does impact our community and it could impact our air quality. The Port Authority obviously is the main person, but Phillips 66 is inviting public comment from the residents of Corpus Christi related to this project. As part of the federal requirements that they have several public engagement processes. Their first open house will be at the Omni Hotel right down here on Shoreline Boulevard, and it will be this coming Monday, July 22nd, from 4 to 8 p.m. There's 2 different events. There's a 4 to 6 and then a 6 to 8, but that block of time is available for our residents, so we want to encourage them if they want to get involved and give comment to Phillips 66. This is the opportunity for our residents to do that. It's one of 3 opportunities. The parking will be free at the Omni for this event, so parking is free. The location is conducive, and we encourage the residents to come and give their thoughts on the project. And then with our police department, just 2 other updates for you this morning, Mayor and council members. I know the chief is here and several of his command staff, but regarding the police academy, we know every year we have a police academy to train new police officers. They refer to them as cadets, as they're in that beginning training program. And a week ago, last Monday, I had the honor to talk to, I should say, the cadets of the this is the 78th Police Academy cadets. There were 36, it's a little bit of a larger class this year, 36 cadets that began their training. I started off my comments to them with a little bit of a joke, but the only persons laughing were the officers that trained the cadets, and so it just reminded me how serious the cadet training is. These guys were very serious on their first day, and it's a very serious program. It's a very serious profession, but it was great to be there. As I mentioned, the cadet class. One thing I did notice, and I had actually looked at information prior to being there, but it's a very diverse class. So of the 36 cadets, 26 of them are in a minority class. So they could be Hispanic or female, so that's real good diversity. 26 of the 36 are of diverse background. And then regarding female, this is even a equally significant statistic. Of the 36, more than a third are female cadets, so 13 female cadets. So that's pretty good. I know in San Antonio it was always tough to get female cadets in that department, so this speaks well for our department and for our initiatives on diversity. As you probably know, their training is both very physical but also intellectual. The cadets will be spending 7 months in our facilities training on various things such as firearm training. They even practice underwater arrests. That was something new for me. And other field training. After those 7 months of training, they will spend 6 months in the field with experienced officers, either riding along or shadowing them in their activities. That's referred to as that field training officer program. I reminded the cadets, one of the reasons I was there is I wanted to remind them of their importance and what we do as a city, but also that they are ambassadors of the city. And so people see the police officer, even if they're a cadet or a seasoned police officer, and that's often their first perception of what is Corpus Christi, right? So I reminded them of that and encouraged them to do well in their training. I told them I'd come back to see them in their graduation ceremony. In fact, the chief told me don't wait for that and come back sooner, so I may come back and see him again, as long as they don't make me do all those push-ups they were doing when I saw them that time. But I did want to, before I leave that topic, thank the chief. I know he's here this morning, and his command staff takes a good number of people to train all these cadets. Assistant Chief Blackman is one of the executives that helps the chief, Deputy Chief Bowers, and Captain Lerma, the professionals that help in this training academy. So thank you, Chief, and thank your command staff. And then finally, one other thing to point out, it's a timely issue, is that our police department is trying to continue to make our Corpus Christians aware of the Move Over law. So this is a law that is required, and it's when we're on the roadways, we need to be mindful to move over. If there's a public safety vehicle that has pulled somebody over, that public safety vehicle also includes a wrecker. So if there's a police officer, an EMS, a fire, or a wrecker, our responsibility is to move over. The police department has a campaign underway. We know that traffic stops are one of the most dangerous parts of the profession, and so we need to do our job to make sure they're safe if they have somebody pulled over. So the public, just to remind them, the campaign's in place, but I thought I'd tell everybody today that the responsibility of the driver is to move to the next lane if there's an emergency vehicle that has pulled somebody over. And if you can't do that, then you should reduce your speed by half of the speed that's posted. So be mindful of the speed limit, reduce your speed by half. It's not just slow down a little bit, but cut that speed in half and provide safety to those public safety officers. And so, Mayor and Council, that concludes my comments for this morning. And I'm here if you have any questions.
Well, we appreciate it. And we do I think the community has a wonderful working relationship with our first responders, and a lot of that goes to the officers as well as the leadership and the two chiefs, fire and police. We appreciate that because a good working relationship solves lots of problems, and it makes working together very easily. All right, we're going to, at this point, we're going to move up. So Dr. Quintanilla here, and I'd like to move them up. I know they want to get back to work out there at the university. And the state, since they're paying them on an hourly basis, wants to get them back to work out there at the state. So, Dr. Quintanilla, if you would come, this is kind of an exciting presentation that we're going to have. It's on the Lone Star Unmanned Aerial Systems, and that's for those that are not aware of what that long name means. It's about drones, and I became exposed to this program back about 4 years ago when it just got started, I believe, out at the university. And it has grown substantially since that introduction 4 years ago. So we're excited about what you've got to say, and we're looking forward to it. It's going to be kind of a fun thing, and you tell us a little more detail about it. Welcome.
Mayor, Tammy Embry, Director of Intergovernmental Relations. I'm just going to give you a short intro. You touched on it a little bit, but the thing that I wanted to highlight as Dr. Quintanilla comes to you with the presentation, because she needs no introduction, and the work that A&M Corpus Christi does needs no introduction, but y'all saw the vision of what Lone Star could be. The city invested $600,000 in Type A funds to help with the creation and start of the Lone Star Unmanned Aerial Systems program, and today you're actually going to see that vision come full circle and see the cool stuff that Lone Star is bringing to the community and to our area. They're already one of only 7 FAA certified test sites, and now we're only one of 2 cities that are actually participating in this test. And I kind of refer to each of these different scenarios as episodes of the Jetsons, for those of you who share my error, but it's pretty cool stuff, and it's going to be really neat to see this come to fruition.
Whoops, so sorry. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. And I'm here to respectfully request that the city share a partnership with A&M Corpus Christi and the Lone Star Unmanned Aircraft Systems in our UAS test event. And so let me begin with a little bit of background. This test event is a culmination of 5-year effort with NASA to develop and test the creation of unmanned aerial systems, urban traffic management system. Okay, that's a lot. So think of air traffic control for drones and manned air systems like airplanes and so on. So imagine that. That's what they're looking at. Texas A&M University Corpus Christi's Lone Star UAS Center, as just noted, is one of only 7 FAA test sites in the country. And for this event, we will be one of only 2 testing the behavior of unmanned aerial systems in a complex urban environment. So it is very exciting. The goal of this event will be to combine the complexity of urban traffic management's hardware and software to ensure the safe use so there aren't collisions and that landing can occur among structures and various transportation that exist in cities. Now, as just mentioned a moment ago, but I cannot stress this enough, this opportunity would not be held in Corpus Christi today. This excellent opportunity that not only brings attention to the beauty of our city, but brings attention to our city as a place of innovation and really at the cutting edge of innovation. This would not have happened without the city's support and the Type A funds that allowed us to apply for that initial FAA test site designation. So this is an incredible opportunity, and you certainly should be commended for taking that chance and risk. And I'm going to save the last point for a little bit later to talk about the event that we had on July 13th. Let me talk a little bit about the event itself. So the WHO is, of course, our Lone Star Center, as well as A&M Corpus Christi, and of course NASA, their urban traffic management system. What we will do is complete 5 test scenarios in downtown Corpus Christi as well as the airport, and this will assess the UAS traffic management capacities in an urban environment. This will occur, we have some dates blocked, but just to give you I'll talk about all the dates, but know they're really weather dependent, and also some of the test variables will depend. So for example, we have 5 days blocked, July 25th and 6th, and then the following Monday through Wednesday, the 29th through the 30th, for what we call rehearsal days, and there'll be 2 of those, so depending on the weather, we may knock that out that first week. We have, hopefully we will complete the test the week of August 12th through the 16th, but we have, just in case of weather or test variables, blocked the 19th through the 23rd, so we have those dates just if needed. The flights themselves will occur from 10 to 2. The actual teardown and setup and everything will go from 8:30 to 3:30, but the flights are restricted because we don't want to interfere with rush hour traffic and really trying to want to limit the impact of inconvenience that might occur. And so what will specifically happen is we will conduct flights with up to 10 live unmanned aircraft systems up in the air and up to 15 simulated systems, all operating simultaneously in a series of controlled environment events along a predetermined path. And I'm going to show those to you here in a moment. But so this will be a great test of the various capacities that we have with, again, the software and the hardware. So once again, I am here to respectfully request the city's partnership in this endeavor. And an event of this scale and of this national importance requires the support and the cooperation of several city departments and entities, as well as community leaders and business leaders, particularly in the downtown area. The test scenarios will require some rerouting of roads and sidewalks, particularly in the uptown area during the flights, and it will also require the usage of some park space in the downtown area. I should stress that Corpus Christi police and fire departments will be involved in the testing of these events, and they have been wonderful partners with us in many UAS opportunities related to first responders and emergency responses. So they have just been incredible to work with, and I commend them for their great collaboration with new technologies and doing everything they can to protect the citizens of Corpus Christi and beyond. But for this event, we will be partnering not only with the city's police and fire departments, but also with the Corpus Christi Convention and Visitors Bureau, the American Bank Center, the Corpus Christi Regional Economic Development Corporation, the Downtown Management District, the Port of Corpus Christi International Airport, and the USS Lexington, and anybody else who wants to partner, because we're really out there to work with folks. So I'm going to show you the various scenarios. There are 5 scenarios, but just a couple things to keep in mind. First is that the order of the scenarios does not indicate the order they will happen. So scenario 1 does not equal Monday. Okay, it depends a little bit on the weather and the test variables. So we have 5 scenarios that will be done over 5 days, but we may alter which days, which scenarios occur. I also want to point out, you'll see boxes in various colors. Don't worry about the boxes. They just give you a highlight of what's inside there. I'm going to talk about some of the other things to look for here in a moment, but the boxes just show where we will be flying in those areas. I thought the colors might mean something different, but they don't. So they're just to catch your attention. Throughout the test, there will be a mobile operations center at Cole Park and at the barge dock that will be running operations. And the Lone Star UAS Mobile Mission Control will also be located located downtown to run logistics. And the mobile mission control, which is housed inside trailers, is actually the same tool that we utilize when we assist local, regional, and state entities when it comes to first response and disaster relief opportunities. And we are very proud to work with Texas Task Force 1. In fact, our Lone Star UAS Center has been named Air Wing 1 as part of the Texas Task Force 1, which of course is nationally and probably internationally recognized for the quality of work they do for first responders and for disaster relief. So we are very proud of that. One of the exciting things is that at these trailers, anytime during these test events, there will be external facing screens, so you will be able to see exactly what is happening inside on the test flight. So you will see exactly what's happening inside. Now, as you can see, as I run through the 5 scenarios, there will be 5 flights that are in the downtown area, 2 flights at Corpus Christi International Airport, and 2 flights at the port at the Joe Fulton corridor. This is the largest test range in the country to utilize an urban area. We will be covering 58 square feet. And if you look here on this one shows it probably, I think it's the easiest to see, but there is a straight red lines inside some of these boxes. And what those indicate are that manned flights will be occurring at each of those locations. And this is really critical to the future of unmanned aircraft systems. If you want them to deliver your packages or your pizza or whatever you want them to deliver to your house, we have to make sure that they can operate within systems with traffic management where you have both manned and unmanned aircrafts flying, and that we have the technology and the infrastructure to support that. And that is what this will be testing. This is really and truly critical to the future of unmanned flight. As you look here then, there are several other scenarios there. One of the things we make note of is that within the city, that is considered what's called an urban canyon, and flying in urban canyons is, again, something that is very important to test, not only for cities of Corpus Christi, but also for cities of sizes that are larger than Corpus Christi. And then this is the last of the 5 scenarios. So they, again, will be running over the course of 5 different days, but the exact order, we're not sure. It'll depend on test variables. Now, as I noted on the first slide, that we had a public forum this past weekend on July 13th to gather questions and concerns that the public might have so we could share those with you. We had almost 40 citizens show up to that event. I will tell you they were extremely excited. They were very positive. They were excited about the opportunity to learn about UAS technology and proud of their city for being leaders in that area. So that was a very positive event, and so I don't really have concerns to bring forward, just words of encouragement. Additionally, if you approve this partnership, we will invite the public to observe our tests, which I mentioned a moment ago. They can come and watch what's happening on those screens, and I think that's very exciting. We'll also have certainly opportunity to share information about UAS technology and the future of UAS traffic operations. We will also host a NASA and A&M Corpus Christi Media Day on August 15th. That will be at the American Bank Center. So if you don't want to stand outside in the heat and watch the screens, you are invited to come and join us on that day in the American Bank Center. And again, you will see everything that's going on in the Mission Control Center and be able to watch it firsthand. So with that in mind, whoops. Yeah, make that go back. With that in mind, I would be happy to answer any easy questions that you have. All the technical questions, I've got a team over there that can help with that. My understanding of drones is growing daily, but I'm pretty sure they can answer any of the tough questions a lot better than I can. So, do you have any questions at this time?
Anyone have any questions? I think you've got us in awe, and we just can't think of anything right now.
But I think this is just an incredible opportunity for our city because, this is a chance for the nation, and we expect heavy national coverage, so we are excited about that. But this is a chance for the entire nation to look at Corpus Christi and say, there is a city that is doing so many great things, and they're really leading the way for innovation, and that is what we want people to see. We also imagine that they will see the beauty of our city as they're seeing these various flights, and so, we are the best of all worlds, and so we're very happy to help make sure that message gets out.
Doctor, August 15th, is that all day, or is there a time frame?
It'll be during the flight time, so 10 to 2 is the actual, there is a tear down and setup, but 10 to 2 is probably the best time to be there. Would
Well,
that
thank
be
you.
correct, Mike? Yes, okay, that's it.
Well, introduce the folks that you have here
I'll have
so
them
we
go
can kind of see
ahead,
you.
go ahead. Mike Sanders.
Good morning, my name is Mike Sanders.
And innovation.
Well, it's pretty exciting, and for anybody that had any doubt that the university wasn't being run by an energetic, enthusiastic, Energizer Bunny president, I think that has been dispelled today. We appreciate all the work you're doing and your enthusiasm and your commitment to the university. And this is going to be a lot of fun. And we're looking forward to it, and we'll pray for good weather.
Absolutely, and thank you once again. And I just, as I said a moment ago, but I really cannot stress it enough, the commitment and the support that the city has shown the university has really allowed us to do things that we would not be able to do otherwise. And our goal is to make sure that we pay that back, that return on investment is multiplied by tens and hundreds and thousands when it comes to helping our city move forward and advance in what it does, and making sure we have an incredible educated workforce that stays right here in the Coastal Bend. So we thank you so much for your foresight and for your support. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you so much. Mr. Smith, I think he thought of something while we were talking.
Well, this is absolutely fantastic, Corpus Christi being a technological leader, but do you have just a quick second about your other unmanned going on this summer, that you're unmanned at the campus, that not only you're doing this, but you're working with the RTA?
Yes, well, I can talk just a little bit about that. I can preview a little bit, but we are working with the RTA, and we are hoping to have an unmanned vehicle on campus. So we're working out all the routes right now, and having unmanned bus that will run sort of a loop around campus. And so we're excited to bring that technology also. Just so no one is worried, we will have a driver that kind of hangs back just in case. So safety first, but we are very excited. We are partnering right now with the RTA to bring that to our campus. And again, we will be one of the places that are really right at the forefront of testing these opportunities and getting the name of Corpus Christi out there for innovation and bringing that kind of technology to campus, which certainly recruits great students.
Thank you for leading the way. Thank you.
Thank you.
And it will have a pizza dispensing machine on it that they can just put in there. All right, well, thank you so much.
I think that comes a little later.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. And thank the folks at the university involved with it. Thank you. Now, our next briefing is going to be about manned flight, or the lack thereof. I haven't figured that out yet, but let's get a presentation here on service development at the International Airport.
Mayor, Councilman, Fred Segundo, I'm the Director of Aviation, and what we're going to be doing today is air service presentation. And before we do that, I just want to acknowledge a couple of folks. Mr. Dan Benson, the Executive Vice President of Landon Brown, and Mike Bound, also with Landon Brown, I'm sorry, and Kim Bridger Hunt, who is our marketing manager and also our air service development person as well. And we also have a couple of our board members as well, Mr. Ted Mandel and Bob Williams, who is our vice president. Vice Chair, I'm sorry, make you a president. So without that, I'll have Mr. Benson, and I did tell him not to talk in acronyms, so hopefully he'll listen.
I'll try. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, City Council, and for the City Manager and City Attorney. Thank you for having us today. We come before you usually about once a year, it seems, to talk about air service. Very important for the community, very important for all of us. As you all know, we were formerly Trillion Aviation. We became part of Landman & Brown last year. I run the business and finance group. But just for a reminder, I'm former Continental Airlines corporate real estate. So when you hear about airline negotiations, that's the role I played once upon a time there. Mike Bound runs our air service team at Landman & Brown. He was with Northwest Airlines, served in the revenue management. So when we talk about how do airlines choose their routes, how do they price their fares, he's the expert in that area. As we've also talked about, Landman & Brown, Trillion Aviation, performs a lot of services for the airport, rental car negotiations, airline negotiations, FBOs, et cetera. But a small part, but a very important part of the service we provide is air service. So again, appreciate the questions like the speaker before me. I'll take any easy questions as we go through this. But in short, I just want to say that it's important for us, and just to outline what our presentation is, we want to show you data that the airlines look at. So we meet and talk to airlines constantly. And when we do that, these are the data that they are looking at and the questions they ask us. We'll also show some comparative markets of folks in the community who've talked about why isn't Corpus Christi necessarily like this. And so we want to show you maybe one major characteristic that they may be doing that you all may want to consider in your efforts. And lastly, we want to talk about the efforts we're making and doing what we can when we meet with airlines and who we're meeting with. So first for the airline data, and I guess I could probably move this. Good. Sorry, went through our pictures right there. So from an airline data standpoint, this first one is our employment. So people getting on the planes here at Corpus Christi International. And I know we've talked about this before, but the recession hit a lot of the smaller airports and smaller communities the hardest. You had a lot of airline consolidation. And again, what we want to focus on is Corpus Christi in particular. We did see, and I know that Councilmember Smith has been a big advocate of the airport and has pointed out something that we wanted to show, and that was a few years back, 2013-14 timeframe, we applied for and were granted a federal grant by the DOT that we were able to use for marketing dollars. Now, this is also the time when the Eagleford was doing very well, so there's other reasons and factors here, but one thing that we did that Kim led was our Fly Local campaign. And in that campaign, besides rebranding the airport, there was a lot of dollars spent towards stimulating traffic in the community, showing folks why, looking at the fare calculator we have on the website, for example, shows that the cost of flying out of Corpus Christi International may be more cost effective than driving to another market like San Antonio or Houston. Also in doing so, we wanted to compare and show, and I think an important thing here is there's definitely a split on the right side of that graph. And if you look at the top airports there, you see Austin and San Antonio are really, besides the hubs in Dallas and Houston, are the ones that are really growing. Everybody has had some of the same fate. As you can tell from the top half of that, some of that's due to the Wright Amendment when you think about going away, because a lot of those airports have Southwest Airlines as we do today. The bottom ones don't. I think we're very distinguished from that. The next slide. This is a comparison. This is not static. Airport growth, when we look at airlines and adding airlines, airline growth is often tied to economic growth. Doesn't mean that we don't have a strong economy, doesn't mean we aren't making investments and doing the things that we need to be doing here in Corpus Christi. But one of the questions they compare us and look at is what in the short term, in this case a few years, we can always move those slightly, but they usually look in about 5-year blocks. How fast are we growing compared to other places that they're looking? Again, airlines are a business. Since 1978, they were deregulated. And so they're looking, where can I put it in and make the most money? And so one of the factors, only one of the factors they look at is economic growth, and they'll tie that. So right now, we don't show substantial economic growth. Again, that's a time period when, if you look at, and this is just how it works for Corpus Christi, oil was at a high price. The Eagleford was going in 2012. We're obviously recovering from that and we're growing from that. So these numbers should look better by themselves over time as well. To the next slide. This is a slide that when we do our board presentations is a very important slide for us. So O&D, again, as I said, as Mr. Segundo said, I try and avoid some of the acronyms. We have to find, that's origin destination. This is how many passengers per day are getting on a plane, for example, in Corpus Christi and flying to other markets. And where are they flying? Not just where they're flying through, but where they're ending. And so as you can see in the top 4, those are places, Dallas and Houston, that we already have service. So if you take out the top 4 rankings, now you're looking at how many people per day are going to other markets. And when we were flying a lot of 50-seaters by United and by American and by Delta, if you put 27 people on that and you have the ability to grow that, that looks pretty good. But what's happening is those 50-seaters are being retired. And as those are being retired, now we're looking at 76-seaters. So the goalposts are moving a little bit on us. What we ultimately have to do as a market in Corpus Christi is push those numbers up, whether it's the Vegas, the Denver, the New Orleans. However, these are the areas we talk to the airlines about. These are the areas that we talk about. If we can stimulate the demand here, these are our most likely destinations. It doesn't make a lot of sense for us to argue for number 19, Kansas City, Missouri, with 10 passengers. That's not the best city pair for us. So when we talk to airlines, we talk about growing that number right there. But again, with the airplanes getting bigger that the airlines are putting in here, that makes it a little more of a challenge for us. On the next slide, this is load factors. Now, just to be clear, this is, if there's a plane with 100 seats, this is the percentage of people that are buying tickets to get onto that. That doesn't, the other measurement that an airline will use is the revenue, and they measure that. But what we're looking at is load factors right here. And so the left graph is really important for us as we seek new service, because again, this is what the airlines will look at. So for Southwest Airlines, we're well below what their system average is. And so to get to, you want to get towards system average in order to be in the competition for that additional flight. Obviously, we've seen some growth. Despite these numbers, we've seen some growth from American and United in the last 2 years. One was 1 year and one was the other year. And so there is a little bit of competition to protect some market share. But it's important to us that we're continuing to get on these planes, because as they see us getting on there and those load factors go up and they're obviously gaining more revenue off of that, that puts us in competition with other airports for those scarce resources. The slide to the right, and this is important because 6 of the 10 that are the lowest load factors in the Southwest airline system, and Southwest has been a great partner to Corpus Christi. It's one of the legacy airports. It's been, I think they just celebrated 42 years here. They've been great partners, and we want them to continue to be partners. But these are the kind of things that we talk to them about, and that is half, actually 6 of these 10 airports are airports that, because of the Wright Amendment going away, affected our communities, and so we don't have as much going on there. And so it's important for us that as we talk to Southwest about this. There are other factors, again, that go into this, but the load factors, they'll look at this and say, we're the lowest in their system. And that's a concern for us. We want to do whatever we can to protect that service and to grow that service and to have that service. But it's a focus that we have discussions with them on why that is that we should maintain those flights. So part of our job is not just trying to get additional air service, but it's also to maintain what we have. And this was the purpose of this was a Corpus Christi presentation. When we do stakeholder meetings and board presentations, we talk about national trends, but there are a lot of airports our size that have lost business. We've been really good at sustaining that as a community, so we want to keep that up. The next one, and this is a real important slide, and I think the marketing that we talked about before and marketing we talk about in the community afterwards is crucial. This is a snapshot. It's called leakage. So if you live in the Corpus Christi region, let's say a 60-mile radius, and you buy an airline ticket, not drive, but buy an airline ticket, and you fly out of an airport other than Corpus Christi, that's what this tells you. And so what this tells you is that there's a percentage, in this case, in the 2019 that we're looking at, San Antonio has about 27%, and the Houston airports combined have about 14%. There could be a slight leakage to Austin. That's mostly going to be for international traffic. We'll add that in here as well, but we think it's probably about a 1% or less that we would see there. This is really what we're competing against. And to simply move this from 59% up to 70% would mean so much for not only maintaining our air service, but for being able to preach and commit to more air service with the airlines as we talk about that. So when we talk about what do we want to do to gain more air service, one of the things is what can we do to help the community fly out of Corpus Christi? The next slides are a couple market comparisons. Again, just some markets that have been brought up. We're not saying it's apples to apples. There may be things that some of these markets have done. Again, none of these are clients of ours. However, we just wanted to bring that as this kind of talking goes on around the community. One was Pensacola. Obviously, we know that the Pensacola, Panama City, Destin, Florida is a big attraction nationally from there. But what we wanted to show here is Pensacola, and this has been through years of investment, years of marketing, full package of what those communities have been doing, have got a substantial amount of demand. Their size of their communities aren't substantially different than ours. But again, with a a persistence to market as a fly market when they're also a drive market as well. Pensacola is where, to an extent, we don't even have to be to that extent to be very successful. But that's what Pensacola has done, is they've been very demand driven. As you can see by the percentage of their load factors versus ours, they've got substantial demand even though they're similarly sized as a community. Myrtle Beach was another one. Again, not saying that we are or are planning to be Myrtle Beach. Theirs is a little bit different of a tactic they did. They've done a lot of investment into the community as far as 4-star, 5-star hotels. They're seen as more of a fly market, even though they're a drive market as well. But again, just one of the things that they have done is really put into the hotel community and convention center as well. And I know you all have put a lot of effort in the convention center and continue to do so. And the last one, and this one's come up a lot, is Harlingen. In particular, they recently had Frontier Airlines service for Chicago and Denver announced. What's important to know about the Harlingen service is that they did what's called a minimum revenue guarantee or a subsidy. And so they took the risk off of the airline to be profitable and put it on the city to be profitable. And so what the city essentially does is they guarantee each flight. And they say if the flight fills up and they pay the fares they're supposed to pay, we don't owe you anything. But the flight's empty, we pay you for the entire flight. And so they agree to a per seat price in doing that. Now, most of the information on that is confidential. There's some public records on those, and so we've seen some numbers in the $15, $16 range per seat that's empty that they could be paying. We do track that information just to see from comparative standpoints, and they looked at like they're about an low 70s load factor, I think there. So the city of Harlingen is paying Frontier money to serve their community. That doesn't mean there are plenty of, and we're not recommending that, but there are plenty of communities that do subsidize air service, and in some cases that's okay. If we did have a subsidy at some point, which we're not recommending, but if we did have a subsidy, we would be in competition with other communities who are providing subsidies to those airlines as well. So a subsidy doesn't guarantee service. The way we've always recommended it to airport staff is we have to be very close to establishing that service already on our own in order to have the subsidy kind of push you over, because the worst conclusion to something like this is the money runs out and they leave. That's not something we would ever want to recommend. And then the other section we have here, we wanted to talk a little bit about the air service efforts that we've been making with the airport staff. What we wanted to focus on, a couple things there are, and I know we all want to see a new airline here. We all want to see new routes. We've had some successes. We've been here for a number of years. At one point, we were all 50-seaters, and folks were concerned we didn't have first-class service. We do have first-class service. We have seen a growth in capacity, American and United in particular. We have maintained Southwest. Now, it's not ideal, but Southwest, we've been talking for years about trying to get Dallas Love direct service because a lot of people were going through Houston to get to Dallas. They have instituted that on a Saturday-only basis right now. The question really is, and it's not the best time, it's not the best, but it is something. And the question is how well we would support that with the ability to grow. But Southwest is someone who at some point could look at a different route, like a Las Vegas, or a United is someone who could look at a different route, like Denver. We have to show we won't get the ideal times when we first get that service. The question is how well can we rally around that service so we can hold on to it and grow it. The other thing is we just actually yesterday submitted for another DOT Small Community Air Service Development Grant. That's the one that we won back in 2013. Usually they want a period of time between having grants. Obviously, we're in competition for that money. That money has been allocated by Congress, so it is there. But we have submitted, again, for a marketing grant that we would have on that if we were successful. We probably won't hear back until the fall. At some point to the fall. It's hard to kind of nail them down. They were really late announcing last year. They were pretty good early fall 2 years before. We, of course, are always updating our leakage studies. As we talked about the leakage, every quarter we're providing that to the board and talking about that. Catchment area, that's something that I've noted here that's every 5 years. Where are the people who are flying out of Corpus Christi coming from? And you'll start seeing over periods of 5 years, the demographics may move, the population shifts may be. And so when we're talking about spending marketing dollars, when we're talking about advertises. Where do we need to be targeting rather than just blanketing the area? And then again, as we said, we've had a number of meetings with a number of carriers. We've had a number of contacts. Not everybody wants to sit down and have a headquarter meeting. Not everybody wants to have, even as we go to some of these conferences, the 20-minute meetings. That doesn't mean we're not still talking to them. There are 2 airlines that are on the communications that since the conference, when they didn't meet with us, now do want to meet with us. Now that doesn't guarantee that we're going to get anything, but at least it's a dialogue. There's another ones we're still having a lot of back and forth with. So we are constantly talking to whomever is interested, but again, we would love to be able to take more and new information and things that we're doing within the community. And that's really kind of this last slide here, and that is, and the general question that was asked, what else can we be doing? Obviously, the most important thing, no matter which way we go about doing that, is the community support for getting on the planes. As we've talked about, if we've got only 60% of the people and the citizens of Corpus Christi getting on the planes at CRP, at CCIA, can we get that from 60% to 70%? We'll never get it to 100%. There will always be some deal or something that allows people to go. But even if we're targeting, say, a business traveler or something, we have a website calculator that shows time, it shows mileage and gas, shows the differences in parking, it shows the ticket you're going to get in Pleasanton when you drive up 37, it shows all those type of things. And so those are the types of things that we want to steer people towards so they can make an informed decision, not and a lot of times, in fact, Mike and Kim track the fares. And we found sometimes there are some anomalies, and we've had those conversations with the airlines. But when we look at a lot of the fares, they may be more expensive, but they're not substantial. And so in some cases, that may not make sense for a family, but in a lot of cases, it would if we really calculated the true cost of the flight. And so that's where we think some marketing time and dollars would be well spent. We spoke about all these other ones. Again, we're not recommending to the council what should be. It's just what other communities are doing. We've talked a little bit about subsidies. We do have the ability to provide subsidies, but that has to be done by a city or by the community or by an EDC or a CVB. The airport is not by FAA allowed to provide a subsidy. All the airport can do is provide waiver of fees, landing fees, those type of rental rates, those type of things. And those are things that airport is willing to do, of course, anything to get that, because the impact of having that additional passenger is $15 to $20 in revenue to the airport. So if you've got 30,000, 35,000 more passengers coming through, that's $500,000 more to the airport. And I think it's important for everyone to know the airport is an enterprise fund. And so taxpayers are not paying the operating costs on that, but it is an incredibly important asset for this city. And so to have that be as healthy and as the FAA requires to be self-sustainable, those additional passengers will mean real dollars, and it's less dollars that a city would actually have to come back, or an airport have to come back and ask a city for. So obviously the subsidies, the local marketing campaigns, that is pretty much what we think would be a great thing. I know Councilmember Smith has been a big advocate. We talked about that last year at this meeting. And how can we allocate what limited resources we have just to make sure there's a portion going towards that, so that we again can encourage people to get on those planes. As more people get on those planes, it's a better story for the airlines to add service. And then of course development and tourism. We know I'm from Austin. I drove down from Austin. I did last year too. I'm sorry. But we know Corpus Christi is a drive market. In Austin, I know as I talk to people in Austin, it's a drive market for Austin. But that doesn't mean that it should be a drive market for everybody. And I think it's important, again, to support this asset and to make it what it can be. So with that, I will answer easy questions like the person before me. And I will do my best. And I also have Mike Bound here in case you get very technical on me.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you. This will be simple, but I really appreciate, and I think the entire council does, because this is it's an eye-opener. And it sounds to me, obviously there's several factors in this, but economic growth is basically the key to putting more people on an airplane. And maybe there's a socioeconomic factor to it as well. But it sounds to me like the key is the growth in the city.
I think that's a great question. You're exactly right. We have, as we've met with the airlines over the years, we've talked about the billions of dollars of investment that have been done here. But the question that usually comes back around is, how many jobs did that create? How many high-paying jobs did that create? Did it create just construction jobs or those long-term jobs within the community? So the economic growth is very important, and it goes beyond just investment. It really goes beyond it to sustainability.
So, okay, and to that point, where are we, I think you had a graph there, in sustaining the flights we have now versus, I guess, the difficulty in focusing on adding? Because that's got to be a very difficult and could be dangerous balance to, keep, I guess. But where are we? Is there the number where we should be working towards so that we are competing with others?
I think it's a great question, and I've got a few answers. One, we feel very comfortable with the service we have today as far as the airlines who serve here. In fact, when Trillion Aviation was first hired years ago to do a lease negotiation with the airlines, the question that the chair at the time said is, are we going to lose Southwest Airlines? And that was, I think, 10 years ago. And so importantly, we've maintained that. And we feel very comfortable with Southwest. We feel very comfortable with American and United, even given those numbers. And obviously, we're in discussions if we ever heard something. That doesn't mean that a flight won't go away, and so you reduce a few. And we've had that happen over time. We've also had them add back. So we feel comfortable with that. The big question really is the commitment for a new airline into the market. The easier move for them is to add a route from where they are, because they've already got, if you will, the fixed costs of being here. So I don't want to miss that, and I know that being from Austin, we used to always go through Dallas or Houston, as Corpus Christi experiences today. So again, the kind of conversations we have specifically with our incumbents, who we want to maintain that, is instead of just doing Houston, could you do Dallas, which Southwest did or is starting to do? Instead of just Houston, can you do Las Vegas, which they actually did out of Amarillo for a long time. Both they did, in fact, they still do out of Amarillo. Can we drive Denver service? There's reasons why that hasn't happened yet, but those are the kind of discussions we have. The newer airlines, tough. We have had airlines who we've brought to the community and we've shown and we've talked to, and we've been very close on some of those thresholds. So it doesn't mean we won't get there, but the important thing is if we get it, to support it. I don't know if I fully answered your question.
No, you did.
Okay.
I mean, for me,
but I don't know what the ultimate goal is. To your point, the airline industry doesn't have X number of airlines. It's shrunk substantially over time. So it's great for us to understand that goal if the community has one as a whole, because we can obviously test, is that realistic and what's the time period to get there, but also gives us something to shoot for. Again, years ago, maybe 5 years ago, the discussion was we have to have a first-class service for people who are flying internationally, but they're on a 50-seater, and we were able to accomplish that. So we definitely want to target our asks.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I know you're looking at all options, but do you have regular meetings with the EDC and Visit Corpus Christi?
We have had many meetings with them. In fact, when we were putting our package...
but regular meetings.
We don't have regular
quarterly, or yeah. I mean, and the reason I ask that is because I know we've targeted our drive markets, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, but I don't know if we've actually targeted places like DFW and those things from Visit Corpus Christi.
Councilman, we do, actually I serve on the marketing committee of Visit Corpus Christi, and so I go to those meetings every month, so keep pretty close ties with what's happening with Visit Corpus Christi. And as you know, they do spend pretty much all of their money on the drive market. I do know that lately, since we got the Southwest Saturday service to Dallas Love, that they were looking into what the cost might be of doing some a little additional advertising in the Dallas area, of course, which we welcome. So we do keep close ties with them and have conversations with them about this regularly.
And also the EDC, no regular meeting? Do you do regular meetings with the EDC?
Not so much specifically aimed at air service. We deal with the EDC a lot. We have some co-marketing things in terms of land actually out at the airport. But in terms of air service, we don't meet with them regularly about that, but we have had discussions in the last year about how we can energize the community and energize the business community specifically into committing to using the service that we do provide. We probably could do more there.
If I could add one thing, when we put together our packages for the airline meetings, whether that's a conference or an individual headquarter meeting, there's a lot of economic, local information. We get that from the EDC that we do to put in there to talk about, because of course, as we've talked to a number of these airlines before, we want to talk about what's new in the community, what's upcoming. So we do have those discussions, but to Kim's point, those are a little more ad hoc.
Well, I guess the reason for my question here is to have more synergy in terms of trying to sell our services, our air services, along with what we're trying. We've actually, I think we've lost some businesses because we didn't have the air services. But you know, what can we do? What would that mean for them? How does that tie in with what you're doing? I would assume that those discussions should be on a regular basis along with Visit Corpus Christi, so you can have some synergy. So if something does come up, it'll be an easy communication. I would recommend that you have those, at least a quarterly meeting with both of those organizations.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to take a quick moment to recognize Jay Wise, who's served long and hard on that airport board. And also, I have two people that have helped me in this, Manny Afala and Abby Urban on here. And you know, the airport is tremendously important to us. There's two ways of getting to Corpus Christi, and driving is one and flying is the other. And what we've seen is we had over 400,000 enplanements in 2000. Now we're looking at about 320,000. Fred, what's our budget right now for the airport?
Airport, it's $9.3 million.
Okay, so a $9.3 million budget. Dan talked about the leakage. So the statistics he gave us, 212,000 flights are not originating here that are leaking. So you take that $20 figure, even the $15 figure, that's $3 million that is not ending up in Corpus. It's ending up in Houston, Austin, San Antonio with it. We saw the Fly Local campaign that took place, and the statistics are there that increased enplanements. It was a 2-year program, Kim?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and how much was it?
$340,000.
Okay, with it. So we spent $170,000 a year. $300,000 was from the...
Yes, sir, from the USDOT. Mm-hmm.
And so our enplanements increased about 30,000 for a year. So you multiply that by 15, that's $450,000 at the airport. Do it by 20, and that's $600,000 where we're spending $170,000 a year. But that's small in the scheme of things. And Kim talked about being a drive market. That is our attitude. And my team on there, when they were looking at all the airports, 50 airports have surpassed us in the last 20 years as far as air enplanements. The most common denominator are destination airports, vacation airports on there. And Pensacola was put up there. Pensacola is very similar in their MSA, their size. We were a busy airport in 2000 in Pensacola. Now Pensacola, they went from the 108th busiest airport to the 92nd. We're doing 320,000 flights. They're doing 800 and something thousand. And they've got two other airports, Panama City and Destin, that are doing more flights within 90 miles of it with it. What's the difference between us and Pensacola? We've got a lot more beach than Pensacola does. We've got more economic activity than Pensacola does. We have a much better climate in the wintertime than Pensacola does. Now, Pensacola, they have better water clarity in there, and they have better sand on their beach. But Pensacola started with a development. It was called Seaside. And they got behind their airport, and I think Destin and how much did they spend, Dan? We were talking.
A lot.
They spent a lot.
They've spent a lot.
But they consider themselves a fly market. And this is from the vacationer side on there. How many times, whether These businesses have left us, Stripes, Whataburger, H-E-B. I was talking today about a downtown business. It's wanting to put a music studio here, but one of their concerns is the quality of our air service, because they do fly. So it has many tentacles that are reaching out. This is much bigger than the airport, and I think Councilman Hernandez brought up, this is a community. And if we're going to go to that next stage, we've got to put more emphasis behind the airport. We had a conversation yesterday talking about subsidies on there, and Harlingen is getting behind their airport, and Manny looked up and he found they spent $223,000. That smaller community felt that in the first quarter it's worth $223,000 to improve the air service on there. Now, we've got so much going for us. I don't think we need to do that, but we definitely need to consider ourselves a fly market. We need to take that mantle on there. We need to advertise as a fly market. We need to bring the EDC in there. We need to bring the Type A in there. We need to bring our Visit Corpus Christi in there, and we can become like Pensacola. Pensacola didn't do it overnight. And on the list that Dan put up on economic activity, Pensacola is real high on that list. Panama City is real high on that list. We're not. Now, we've got a great future coming, because what do we have going for us? We're the #1 crude export port in the nation. Our port takes transportation seriously, whether it's rail connection or deep water on there. We just heard ANMCC. We've also got Kingsville, A&M Kingsville's doing great things with it. We've got UTMSI. We're the gateway to more accessible beach than any other city in this nation. We've got so much if we just get together as a community. Thank you very much for doing it, but I think, really starting here. We've got to say the airport is important to us. Put that support behind us, and we can get where we ought to be, where we're doing the 1 million employments, so we can fly out of Corpus Christi, get good connections, non-stops on there, lower flights. It comes with more of that. But I think it starts here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're happy to help however we can.
Mr. Roy?
Again, thank you for the information. A couple things, and I want to reiterate what was said, or I'm not going to reiterate what was said, but when you take a look at Austin, for example, and they have that Bergstrom Air Force Base, and they took basically something that was not much of anything, and now they're running companies like Frontier Airlines, Allegiant, and what's the other one? There's one more here I saw, Spirit. Those type of airlines that have a particular destination with a very low, they usually leave on a Thursday and come back on a Sunday. Is that the first step to courting that type of relationship? How advantageous is that type of a relationship, in your opinion, as far as getting them to come into your market?
Sure. There's a few questions, and Mike might want to add to this, but one obviously is going to be total population side catchment, and as we've talked about, we're around 500,000. Austin's substantially bigger than that. There's also huge economic growth going on there, but it's interesting because you're seeing some changes in the way airlines behave. For example, Southwest Airlines, we've all grown up with them being the low-cost airline. They're a network airline now, and so they may be better on this fare or that fare, but for the most part, it's not substantially different. Over the last decade, you've seen the ultra low-cost carrier come about, which are those carriers that you're speaking about, the Allegiants, the Sun Countries, and such. And early on, they were jumping into communities to grab those fares, and I think Corpus Christi is a great fit for that, and we've spoken to those airlines and met with those airlines. But now they're starting to backfill, as you saw some of the hubs go away in the Midwest, for example, in Memphis, which was a huge Northwest Airlines and Delta hub. They're starting to backfill that. And so they're starting to put their assets into medium-size hubs as well. Austin's a medium-size hub. And so it's getting to where the standard for, in my opinion, for Allegiant Airlines was, can we serve 2 routes successfully? It's now 4 or 5 routes successfully. And that becomes a bigger challenge for a smaller community, if you will. So The best trigger on that is to show that your current air service is supported as well as it can be. Show that, and we show representations to the board on what the airlines are making and if they're profitable or not. They'll see that. They want to see within the community the population and the wages and the wage growth associated with that, because it's really about disposable income even to get on those aircraft. That being said, the beauty of an ultra low cost carrier is that you'll have people who would otherwise either drive or not take a vacation at all get there. And so they won't necessarily take somebody off of a Southwest Airlines flight or a United flight. So I hope that answers your question, but there's a number of factors that go into it, but economic growth is a big piece of it, and community size.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is that when you take a look at a market our size and you take a look at your efforts, would it be, would that be necessarily a win if you bought an Allegiant or one of those, or would you really rather have, more flights on Delta or American? Is there a mix, or what is the ultimate mix?
I think you want that mix to go a little bit with your community business to leisure travel, and there's room for both in Corpus Christi. For example, there are some communities that only have Allegiant Airlines. That is not very conducive for business traveler in their time. No. That being said, only a legacy carrier like an American, United, Delta isn't the best for a lot of communities as well, because unless that person's a frequent flyer, that is a very high fare comparatively to an ultra low cost carrier. We find the mix of both to be ideal. And so for a Corpus Christi, for example, since Southwest is a network carrier, we'd like to see, if we can support it, we'd like to see an ultra low cost carrier with that as well. I think you'd get a good mix for the community of business service and continuing the routes and expanding on the routes you have. Delta is not a good option for Corpus Christi because of the distance to Atlanta, which would be the first hub they would pick there, and the type of plane they use, and the stage length is what they call it for that. It wasn't successful before. It hasn't been successful in other than the larger airports for the Atlanta service. So ultra low cost carrier service is really where you would spend your time on that. We do both though. We are constantly talking to the carriers who are here today, which is the easiest and the best way to grow your service, into additional types of routes. And we talk to other carriers, even ones that we've been talking to for years and ones that are still coming up, and talk to them about that so that we can find that right mix.
So just one more question. Those carriers, those ultra low cost carriers, do you think they're like a flash in the pan? Do you think in terms of long-term service to a particular area, just in general, do they try to penetrate a market, stay within that market for a period of time, knowing that at some point in time there might be an end? Or do you think that they're looking at now of some type of long-term stability?
I may let Mike weigh in on that, but I don't think they're flashing a plan. I think they're all trying to find their space. There are some that are healthier than others. There will be some mergers even within the ultra low cost carriers, as we saw within the legacy carriers, but I think there's market demand for that type of service. There are people who will do the no frills, and they don't want to pay for, as my former CEO Connell said, the toppings on the pizza. They just want the bare bones, cheapest fare they can get. That's not what the legacy carriers are selling, and that's not what the business traveler is looking for in most cases. So I think there's room for both. I can definitely say there will probably be more Constellation. The next time we see a major recession, it's probably when we'll see that. And we'll probably see other changes in the industry as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? The only thing I heard you hint at that may need to take a look, and that would certainly be, if I interpreted it right, that the implication is we're putting all our eggs in the basket in San Antonio and Austin. We're forgetting Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth, and the CVB is in charge of advertising and marketing in terms of that. So that's the group that I think you need to go to look at, get some rethinking of their mindset and where they're doing their advertising. That's just me. But anyway, we appreciate you coming. We'd like to have more flights. It's a challenge because, I mean, you said you drove down from Austin. Well, there's a lot of us that go to Austin. We can drive to San Antonio and Austin a whole lot quicker than we can get on an airplane right now. Mm-hmm. And so it is a challenge.
There's a proximity factor to it, obviously, and again, not to speak to marketing or whatever, but you're exactly right. Dallas isn't necessarily a drive market for Corpus Christi the same way in Austin or San Antonio is. So there's places that those groups know how to spend their money a lot better than I do, but there are places that we can make that a fly market for us.
Yeah. So anyway, well, good luck, and
We're here. We
Fly
appreciate
straight.
your feedback. We do.
Happy landing.
Yeah, thank you.
And you got a
Thank
good
you.
board, so I hope they keep the ratchet up to see what we can do.
Yeah, we're happy to help. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. All right, well, looking at the clock on the wall, it's 1:30. I think we don't have any executive sessions, I recall.
No, we don't.
Well, then let's take our lunch from 1:30 to 2, and when we get back, we will get with our, go back to the regular, wait a minute. For those of you that are here in the audience, we apologize, but we felt like these presentations were important and people needed to hear them. We'll get to our consent agenda, and if you are here and particularly related to items 5 through 8, those are the 4 zoning cases, that'll be first on our agenda when we get back at 2 o'clock. So we'll adjourn for lunch this time.
The City of Corpus Christi wants you to know what we do and what services and programs we provide, and answer any questions or concerns you might have. That is why the city put on the 3rd annual City Hall in the Mall.
More than 30 city departments participated in City Hall in the Mall in June at La Palmera to reach out to residents with information about important services and programs the city offers, like child fingerprinting, the Latchkey program, adopting a pet, and payment plans for utility bills. City staff and council members were on hand to answer questions.
It's been a great experience and a great day. The best part about this is that we, the city, are coming out to the public. And so it makes it very, very easy for them to be in the same place that we are. And also the setting is very casual.
City staff handed out treats, prizes, and items with contact information to help residents get in touch with city departments if a need or issue comes up. Employees also gave demonstrations like how to extinguish a fire, how rainfall affects floodplains, the difference between sober and intoxicated vision, and driving the Rover X that searches underground pipes. Residents talk about what they enjoyed about City Hall in the mall.
It's been really fun. The kids have enjoyed it so much, and it's been really interesting to see all of the different city operations. Everybody's been so helpful, and we've gotten lots of good information in a fun way.
It's fun, actually. They're very, very helpful with fingerprinting the kids. Very gentle. They make them feel not scared at all. All in all, I think we had a good time. I think y'all did an awesome job. Basically, it was basically just self-explanatory, and keep up the good work.
For more information on city departments, visit cctexas.com or follow on social media. Also watch the city's channel, CCTV.
Reporting for the City of Corpus Christi, I'm Eva Padilla.
Corpus Christi has a commission that is dedicated to preserving our history and heritage. The Landmark Commission meets every fourth Thursday of the month, and they serve a very important purpose to our community.
The Landmark Commission is dedicated to helping to preserve the city's landmarks, history, heritage, to engaging the public in the stewardship of our heritage.
On Thursday, May 23rd, the Commission honored 2 of our citizens with awards of preservation. The Landmark Commission Preservation Project Award was given to Dr. Jeff Allen for his renovation on the old Taylor Brothers building, which was built in the 1930s and is now known as the Bay Jewel Event Center, located at 624 Mesquite.
It was an incredible example of how a historic building can be adapted and reused into a contemporary context. It now serves as an event space downtown, open for the use of individuals, families, organizations, businesses, and kind of revitalizes our downtown space.
Laura Sandoval is the general manager of the Jewel, and she talked to us about all they did to revitalize the old building and people's initial reaction to the renovation.
Almost everybody walks in and says, there's nothing like this downtown, there's nothing like this in Corpus Christi, and they love the look because we kept the stained concrete, the concrete floors and restained them. A lot of the original pillars that were support beams were in the building, but they put brick around them, which they found in the building. So that was kind of cool. And then they put new windows in, but they kept where they were originally in kind of the original look.
By adapting and reusing these historical buildings, it brings a historical element to our city that helps provide a community fabric that gives us a sense of unity and pride. The second award that was given out that night was presented to Anita Eisenhower. She received the Spirit of Preservation Award because of her work to help weave the historical fabric of our city for the past few decades. She has served multiple terms in commissioner and leadership roles within the Corpus Christi Landmark Commission, Nueces County Historical Society, and Nueces County Historical Commission.
I've been very involved in historical community since, I guess, the mid-70s. And I was lucky to have some mentors who gave me guidance about what is going on in our city and what is important.
You may have seen some of these historical markers around the city and county. Well, Anita has overseen submissions and dedications of dozens of these state markers for the surrounding areas. She even finds time to write them herself. She wrote the marker about the old Bayview Cemetery because to her, it's one of the most important historical markers that we have.
This is the greatest asset of the city of Corpus Christi because it began when our city began, and it also incorporates all of anyone that possibly lived in Corpus Christi through that period, being military people, mayors, preachers, just anyone, a person who even dredged the first channel for our port is buried there. It is not segregated. We have a Buffalo Soldier there.
These two individuals have laid out the blueprint of what our city and our citizens can accomplish with the right motivation and drive. They understand that in order to move forward, we must not forget the past.
Recognizing individuals who have dedicated their time and their effort, who've invested in that process, whether it's revitalizing, readapting, and reusing a historic building that's been a centerpiece of downtown life for decades, or whether it's individual acts over and over again that an individual does to recognize a particular place or a particular event in our history.
It's important for Corpus Christi to keep our past in our present, and by visiting these landmarks, you will be helping weave the fabric of our community. If you want to learn more about what's going on in our historical community, Attend one of the Landmark Commission meetings. You can look up the agenda on our website, www.cctexas.com.
The city held its annual hurricane evacuation drill here at the Corpus Christi Gym. And to them, it's not just another exercise. What staff works on and practices here could mean the difference in someone's life down the road.
It wasn't too long ago that our area was impacted by a hurricane. And thanks to the city's annual hurricane evacuation drill, our staff knew what to expect.
Prior to Harvey, we had done it 6 years in a row. And so when Harvey did come to the actual event, we were ready and we were prepared, and the staff did a great job of evacuating people.
Now, the drill isn't just for the employees of the city. It's also a way to help inform the public and keep our citizens aware of the importance of staying prepared.
As each family should already have an evacuation plan or an emergency preparedness plan for your own family.
A starting point is deciding whether you're going to stay or evacuate. If the answer is to evacuate, then it's important to take the proper documents with you, any medication you're taking, and don't forget about your pets.
The RTA suspends the charges, so it's free. Bring your luggage, and we do evacuate pets. To us, we evacuate the whole community, and pets as part of a family, we make sure that the pet will go with its owner.
After everything is packed and you're ready to evacuate, head to the closest bus stop, and there you'll be picked up and taken to Corpus Christi Gym. From there, you'll enter the gym and go to the registration tables. If you have a driver's license, it'll speed up the process because all you have to do is scan it and they'll have all your relevant information.
Once that's all done, then they come to the loading area, which is here behind us. And as soon as we get buses available, then we start scanning them onto the buses.
From there, the buses will take you to a safe location until it's time to come back. Make sure you keep this yellow wristband on you at all times. It's what the city is using to track you and your family, even the little furry ones.
Well, we've got to be able to track the people. And this system that we use tracks them from the time they register until they come back to Corpus.
Once this is clear, once the city is safe to come back, and we would bring them back the same way.
Drills like this help us stay prepared. For more information on what to do in the event of a hurricane, visit our website at www.cctexas.com. Reporting for the City of Corpus Christi, I'm Brad Godicke.
Fire Station 18 celebrated the unveiling of their new fire truck that has the latest technology. Engine 18 is officially in service.
The Corpus Christi Fire Department marked the occasion with a traditional wet-down ceremony. Council members and other officials wiped down Engine 18 as part of the dedication ceremony to show the truck is ready to respond to calls immediately.
We're here today at Fire Station 18 to celebrate taking another step forward for the City of Corpus Christi and for the Fire Department when it comes to providing fire protection for the west side.
The fire engine features cutting-edge technology.
It comes equipped with airbags, side row protection for the firefighters, but also the capacity and the capability of the fire truck. It is able to pump 2,000 gallons per minute, which is an enormous amount of water. It also has a 40-gallon foam tank on it in cases that we have to throw foam. This fire truck is the latest and the most up-to-date fire trucks that we can get.
The brand new truck also has Firecom headsets to talk with dispatch, a 500-gallon water tank, a backup camera, a 1,000-foot large diameter hose, and a 400-foot quick attack hose. The city has prepared Fire Station 18 for service quickly. The city broke ground on Fire Station 18 in 2016, celebrated the opening ceremony in 2017, and 2 years later unveiled their new apparatus to begin taking calls. City Council approved the purchase of the more than $600,000 truck a year ago.
Reporting for the City of Corpus Christi, I'm Eva Padilla.
Corpus Christi has many historical landmarks, and you'll want to get out to see them. That's why May is such a big month for our community.
In May, we're joining together with many citizens across the nation and celebrating National Preservation Month. Historic preservation is extremely important on the local, state, and national level.
Without preservation, we would be losing some of Corpus Christi's most iconic landmarks, which means we would also be losing our history and heritage to Father Time.
The oldest residence that is currently standing in its original position is called the Centennial House, and it's the Forbes Britton House, named for two people who called it home, and it stands up on the bluff in its original site from the 1840s.
The Centennial House, which is located at 411 North Upper Broadway, played a big role in our history. It was built in 1849 and used as a hospital and a mess hall for the federal troops in the 1800s. Historic preservation needs two legs to stand on, and the first leg is
public advocacy. In public advocacy, communities identify historic resources that are important to them and acknowledge those resources. And secondly, a lot of preservation is undertaken through private development.
Some of our historical properties have been redeveloped by private developers and are now thriving businesses. It's important to go out and help visit these places to help spread awareness. And when you do, post it on social media with the hashtag #ThisPlaceMatters and also hashtag #ThisPlaceMattersCC.
Tell those stories about your family's history, you know, where you and your grandfather had a hamburger at this one place and you went by this building, or you visited this one house, or you're loosely connected to, you know, some prominent Corpus Christi figure.
Rip currents. They're narrow, fast-moving channels of water starting near the beach and extending offshore. Think of the current as a treadmill. It can travel as fast as 8 feet per second. Great weather for the beach does not always mean it's safe. Rip currents often form on calm, sunny days with waves only 2 to 3 feet high. They're quite fast coming along our Gulf Coast and can be deadly to new swimmers. Here are some tips on handling a rip current and possibly saving your life. Always remember to stay relaxed. Trying to swim against a rip current uses up energy you needed to survive and escape the rip current. One of the most important things to remember: wave, yell, swim parallel. Rip currents don't pull you under, they pull you away from the shore. Wave and yell for help and swim parallel along the shoreline until you escape the current's pull. If you feel you can't swim, don't panic. Keep your head above water, face the shore, and call and wave for help. If possible, only swim at beaches with lifeguards. The City of Corpus Christi beach warning flags only fly when lifeguards are in the stands and are put up within 30 minutes of their arrival. The top flag will be white with a red cross, followed by a green, yellow, or red flag for surf conditions. Green means there's low hazard surf conditions, yellow for medium, and red for high. Keep an eye on these flags. If conditions change throughout the day, the flags do too. If you choose to swim on beaches without a lifeguard, never swim alone. Take a friend and have that person take a cell phone so they can call 911 for help. Also, check water conditions before going in by looking at the local beach forecast before you leave for the beach. For more information, visit cctexas.com or call the Corpus Christi Beach Office at 361-826-3469. That's 361-826-3469. Remember, when in doubt, don't go out.
The health department has the latest technology in body fat composition. It's the state-of-the-art Bod Pod.
The Health District's 1115 waiver program provides chronic disease prevention to Medicaid, low-income, uninsured, and underinsured families. Prevention includes offering free wellness screenings, free diabetes classes, and outreach to community centers and senior centers.
We do a lot of it is diabetes prevention. You know, one in 5 people out there have diabetes, and they're walking around, they don't even know it. So diabetes is one check. Hypertension is another. That's a part of our screenings. You know, they call hypertension the silent killer because people are walking around with elevated blood pressure, and then they end up in the ER with a, you know, God forbid, a heart attack or a stroke.
As part of the chronic disease prevention and outreach, the 1115 waiver program bought the Bod Pod and trailer in 2018. The egg-shaped machine measures body fat composition to help select people at risk to chronic diseases like diabetes or heart disease.
So once we get to a location, we need to calibrate our equipment here since we are a mobile unit. After I get her weight on the scale, now she will come in here and sit inside the Bod Pod. Make sure you breathe normally. If you do panic, there is a cancel button at the bottom if you do panic and you want the test to stop. We run 2 tests. They're about 90 seconds each. Good job, that's it. I will send her back. You can go put your clothes on, and I will print her results for her while she is getting dressed.
The Bod Pod testing offers 3 price packages. The first package is $50 that includes A1C and a hypertension screening. The second package adds a pre and post test over a 3-month span for $90. And the third package has 3 tests over a 6 or 9 month period for $110. The 1115 waiver program saw about 100 patients per month as of September 2017, but has increased to about 250 patients per month in 2019. The division's goal is to partner with companies to use the Bod Pod and help fund other services they offer.
We're trying to partner with corporations. People, they want healthy employees. So we want to say, hey, this is an effort for us to get out there for you. We'll do your screenings on site. We'll start a fitness challenge for your employees. We'll come back in 3 months, maybe 6 months, whatever you'd like. We'll set it up to your liking and incentivize them to stay healthy.
Call the 1115 waiver program at 361-826-1115 for more information or to set up an appointment.
Reporting for the City of Corpus Christi, I'm Eva Padilla.
The Corpus Christi Fire Department spent a week teaching new search and rescue techniques to Latin American fire departments. These firefighters will go back home and teach what they've learned. The fire department's knack for saving lives isn't limited to the city. The knowledge shared with this group of Mexican and South American bomberos will be put towards everyday situations back home. You see, the modern-day fire service is an all-hazard agency. Not only do firefighters respond to fires, they also handle medical emergencies, hazardous materials, and of course, search and rescue.
Our rescue requirement is all-encompassing in that there are many, many different facets of rescue that these firefighters are learning.
The visiting firefighters spent time in the classroom, receiving instruction and learning new skills for the coming week. The language barrier, a challenge easily handled by this group.
We have some members of the McAllen Fire Department and the Mission Fire Department that were kind enough to come up and act as not only instructors but interpreters as well.
After a couple of days of hitting the books, the team practiced their newly acquired skill, shoring. Crews cut the wood that built the protective structures. While doing this, fire department instructors randomly alerted the teams. This drill allowed them practice for taking shelter inside the load-bearing safety tool.
We're also having to use the stuff that is going to be available to them. So it's not just all using, the latest and greatest equipment, but also, they may not have certain saws. They may have a chainsaw, so they're going to use the chainsaw to cut wood. We'll let them use a chainsaw instead of some of the other saws that we carry.
The focus on shoring, no coincidence. In 2017, Mexico City experienced a massive earthquake that injured thousands and killed hundreds. The destruction, a not so distant memory for one bombero.
Hace 3 años tuvimos una clase muy similar aquí en Corpus. Y el 19 de septiembre, cuando sucedió lo del sismo, su servidor y mis compañeros viajamos a la Ciudad de México para reunirnos con nuestros compañeros los topos, que somos parte de, y utilizamos este tipo de apuntalamientos. Nos acordamos mucho de lo que aprendimos aquí en Corpus.
After time in the classroom and search and rescue scenarios, the city's visitors graduated from their schooling, each one of them knowing more and ready to return home better prepared for any emergencies needing their assistance. To stay up to date with what's going on in the city of Corpus Christi, head over to news.cctexas.com. For the city of Corpus Christi, I'm Dale Stefan reporting.
The city's code enforcement department wants to remind you that every building must have a visible address identification. The address identification must be legible and visible from the street or road in front of the property and must follow these regulations. If your building cannot be viewed from a public road, a monument, pole, or other sign may be used to identify the structure. If your house number isn't visible, emergency services will have a harder time finding you. For more information, visit us at www.cctexas.com.
It's almost summer, and the city of Corpus Christi is looking for lifeguards to work its Gulf beaches. You need to be 16 or older and know how to swim. We will provide the training. If you enjoy the outdoors, staying active, and working with people, then this job is the right one for you. Join our experienced and dedicated Gulf Beach rescue team and make it a summer to remember. Apply today at www.cctexasjobs.com or call 826-8542. Are you 16 or older looking for a summer job? The City of Corpus Christi Parks and Recreation Department has several temporary positions available for various summer recreation programs. We're looking for pool managers, lifeguards, and swim instructors. Enjoy working with the youth? There are more than 100 positions open for our Latchkey summer camps and the Summer Spark program. We invite you to join our dynamic, energetic, and creative staff. Apply today. Go to our website, www.cctexasjobs.com, or call 826-3460. The city wishes you could see the utility lines our specialists see, but you can't. That's why it is important to call 811 2 days before you dig. Just provide the location of your project and what is being done. Then a specialist will go to the location and mark the underground lines. Now you can begin your project. It's not just the safe thing to do, it's the law. Remember, know what is below. Call 811 before you dig.
The Salinas Park Play for All Playground at 1354 Airport Road is a multi-phase project between Corpus Christi's Housing and Community Development and Parks and Recreation Departments. Their goal? Building a quality complex that includes a wide array of play elements for everyone to enjoy. This ADA-friendly playground is the first of its kind in the city, and Community Development Block Grants made it possible. Phases 1 and 2 feature slides, swings, play decks, and activities for visitors of all ages. The vibrant design includes many imaginative pieces aimed at engaging the senses and building motor skills. The playground features many attractions. There's a zip line, sways, swings, a flat roller slide, quiet space, and a fenced play area. Designers equipped the playground with a uniformed surface, allowing easy access through the entire play zone. The equipment receives shade from a huge weather-resistant canopy. This addition also adds longevity to the structure and surface areas. There's also a low-maintenance extreme climate coating to help fight rust, a side effect of our coastal climate. The Play for All Playground is right next to Miracle League Field, a fully accessible ball field with ADA accessible parking areas and sidewalks, also funded by CDBG. The Salinas Park project is part of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan and shows the passion the city has for ADA accessibility. ADA accessibility remains a priority, and Corpus Christi hopes to create more Play for All playgrounds like Salinas in other parts of the city, but on a smaller scale. Please come play with us.
Hello, Corpus Christi. I'm Yvette Garcia-Jones. Thank you for joining us for our monthly engineering update. Our first project, Slough Road from Rodfield Road to Amethyst Drive, will see a full-depth reconstruction and widening of the roadway. This project is funded by Type B sales tax proceeds. Additional improvements will include curb and gutter, sidewalks, street lighting improvements, and a new underground stormwater system. There will also be limited upgrades to Ametrine Drive to facilitate traffic access during and after construction. The second project is a joint city and TxDOT participation project that is completed. The Pedestrian Hybrid Beacon, or PHB, traffic signal has been installed at Ocean Drive and Delmar Boulevard. This new traffic signal will provide safer pedestrian access from the nearby neighborhoods across Ocean Drive to Cole Park. Improvements for the PHB project include installation of the foundations, signal poles, mast arms, signal heads and beacons, audio and visual features, and a controller cabinet. That's all for the July report. For more information about these projects, visit cctexas.com and be sure to follow us on social media for more project updates. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next month.
Providing water. It's just one of the many responsibilities that the city of Corpus Christi takes on for the folks who call this warm, sunny South Texas city home. And as residents know, that comforting sun they appreciate while enjoying a day at the beach can also bring on sweltering heat that leads to dreaded drought conditions. And with drought conditions come water restrictions.
In 2011 to 2013, this area of South Texas was highly influenced by a drought.
That's why council members this summer decided to move forward with the City of Corpus Christi desalination project.
All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
A decision that could bring a drought-proof water supply to residents and the surrounding community, and because we're surrounded by the ocean, it just makes sense.
We will study or review site location permitting of a potential seawater desalination plant.
The city is looking to build a plant that can produce 11 million gallons per day to about 22 million gallons per day. A desalination plant removes the minerals like salt and sand from water and makes it safe for human consumption. Ramos, along with a team of consultants from Fries & Nichols, an engineering firm, plan on spending the next 2 years researching the possibility of building a desalination plant right here in South Texas. Water produced by the plant will add to the city's existing water supply and help meet future water demands. Right now, the city has 4 major water sources: Choke Canyon, Lake Corpus Christi, Lake Texana, and the Colorado River.
All these sources are surface water sources, so they're dependent upon inflows and rainfall throughout the year to meet our demands.
The potential desalination plant wouldn't connect to those freshwater inflows, and because the source is the ocean, the city can provide a dependable water source that can be integrated into our system. But making science fiction a reality is easier said than done.
It's more than just taking water out of the sea and then just filtering it through a reverse osmosis. You have to make sure that you protect the system.
Right now, Ramos says they're looking at multiple sites in the Corpus Christi and La Quinta ship channel. The team needs to see if those locations meet their objectives and if they can get the water rights and TCEQ discharge permits. You see, with water desalination comes waste or effluent.
So we would work with the state to obtain those special authorizations so that we can continue to discharge our seawater, our effluent into the bay. In this project, we'll make those needed determinations and do the proper science so that we can obtain those permits.
One popular technique, adding a diffuser to the end of the discharge line. This allows the effluent to mix properly with the seawater.
All right, we'll call the meeting back to order. When we left for lunch, we were going to go to consent agenda items 4 through 17. We need to come back at some point for our board and committee appointments, but and maybe I made the wrong assumption, but I'm assuming that there's probably some folks here that are interested in hearing items 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, which are zoning cases. Anyone here that wants to speak to one of those zoning cases, items 4, 5, 6, 7, or 8? Anybody on the council want to pull one of those to discuss it?
Mayor, I will be abstaining from item number 8.
All right. That's, where do you make a note of that? Or you've got that? Okay. Well, then let's take care of those first, and then we'll get those out of the way. Entertain a motion on consent agenda items 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 with Mr. Molina. Well, you want to call the rolls? Well, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and then we'll call 8 by itself so he can abstain from that. All right, I'll entertain a motion on items 4, 5, 6, and 7 on passage of on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, there's a motion second on items 4. 4 through 7 on the consent. Any discussion? If not, entertain all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, entertain a motion on item 8.
So moved.
All right, been moved and seconded on item 8, and for the record, Mr. Molina will be abstaining from this discussion or participation in the vote. Anyone in the public have any comment on item 8? Seeing no response. Anybody from the council? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Anybody have any questions on item 9, 10, well, 9 through
17.
17. I'd like to have some discussion on item 10. Anybody have anything else they want to pull on for discussion from 9 through 17?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like 11 through 14.
Huh?
11 through 14.
11 through 14?
Yep.
Holy moly. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion for passage of item 9, 15, 16, 17.
So moved, Mayor.
Second. There's a motion and a second. Any public comment on those items? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, and we've already passed 9, right?
Yes.
We passed 9 a minute ago. Okay. I requested item number 10. I don't have anything, but one, the good news is that this is a project that a lot of people have been looking forward to for a long time. And they need to understand that it's finally happening, and that's the good news. The bad news is, as we heard today during public comment, and we've heard, at least I have, and I think every member on this council has gotten calls about the slowness of our major street projects, and particularly intersections, taking what appears to be an extremely long period of time. Have we done, or what are we going to do before we tear up Everhart to Holly, from Holly to Padre Island Drive? We can't take the delays and the lack of attention on this contract that we've allowed to happen in the past, and hopefully we've changed our procedures. They're taking, in my opinion, they're taking way too long. Too many sunshine days go by and that nobody shows up, and it's just wrong. And we've got, tell me what we've done that's going to be different on this one, or what we've got in place to make sure that these, if the sun's shining, people are working.
I can say that the contractor, in order to avoid liquidated damages, they're going to have to make hay while the sun is shining. That's a fact. And
okay. Keep going.
We're going to have full-time inspection on it. All I can say is we're going to use every tool that we have in our toolbox to ensure that they're being diligent and making good progress in completing this project.
Well, I'd like to be able to take some comfort in that.
Well, I'd like to tell you that I got a lot of tools in my toolbox, but...
Well, let me ask you, and I'm not in the business, so I know nothing about building streets. And I see folks out there that are, and they probably say, yeah, you don't know a thing about building streets, and I don't. But I do know that when you can't have access to businesses, you put them out of business. And the appearance, now whether this is true or not, but the appearance, and I think everybody here that gets calls about construction projects taking forever and a day to get done, is that they work a few days, and then there'll be anywhere from a day to a week that nobody shows up, and there's absolutely no explanation whatsoever. Well, it rained too much. Well, it rained okay. We understand rain delays. But maybe one of the things, and I don't know how you determine this, you've got them, what's the timeline on this particular project? 18 months, 21 months? 21 months. Let me ask, anybody in here that could not have access to their business for 21 months stay in business that long? We can't do it.
Well, we are going to do everything we can to be sure everybody has access to their business for the entire...
Maybe giving them 21 months without having liquidated damages is a Christmas gift. Maybe we put it into 15 months. I mean, I don't know anything about the business, but something is not working. And I don't know, maybe the council, I'm off on a tangent and they haven't had any calls and everybody's happy with the delays that appear to me that I get calls, but it's unbelievable. And I think the gentleman that spoke this morning, I mean, he's terribly concerned about it. And I can understand why.
Justifiably so. And I can tell you that it's a difficult straddle that we try to come up with. You want to give the contractor a reasonable amount of time to complete the amount of work. And on these corridors where you have all of these businesses and you have to maintain continuous access to these businesses, it impacts their ability to make progress on the project negatively. So it's a delicate balance. If we could just shut the corridor down, the contractor could probably do the work in half the time. Now, what the contractor are probably telling you is we're not given enough time. A lot of the contractors are bidding liquidated damages into their bid because they know they cannot complete within the stipulated completion date. You know, you can reduce that. You're not necessarily going to reduce the time of construction. You can put 12 months. Now, they're going to say, well, we're going to have a year of liquidated damages in there. We're going to pump up our prices to cover that. And the problem you get with that is that we give it indication to the public that the project might be completed in a year, and you're really not. So I don't know. Ideally, we'd like to put enough time to get the job done within reason if they prosecute the work diligently. But if you give too little, it's not really going to get done in that amount of time, and they just put those liquidated damages in their bid.
Educate me, and I think hopefully the public, and if I'm taking too much time, I apologize, but it's really cut, and I think everybody's gotten calls or something about these. What is currently done? Do we have somebody every day that goes out and make sure there's somebody on the job? And are they getting anything done? Or do we just inspect once a week or once a quarter? I mean, once a month? Or how do we, what do we do to make sure, not telling them how to do their business and how fast they ought to be doing it, but at least that somebody's on the job working?
Well, every day we have continuous inspection on these larger projects. On some of the smaller ones, an inspector could have, 2, 3, maybe even as many as 4 projects. But on a project like this, we would have a dedicated inspector. They do a daily report every day where they document all of the activity. When we get into the position of assessing how much liquidated damages or whether they're entitled to a contract extension, the first question I ask is, how many days did we have where there was no activity? And I tell the contractors all the time, I said, any day you decide not to be out here working, you better be prepared to accept liquidated damages for that day. Because
and is there a definition of not working? I mean, if they meet you out there at 10 o'clock and have coffee and then nobody else shows up, somebody was there that day, he was, so does that constitute they were working or not?
I would say no. not in my
I mean, as long as there's a clear understanding, because it just, I mean, I don't know. Everybody wants to talk, and I've talked too much, so let's get that out. But I think you'll get a sense that there's a lot of frustration on the part of the public as well as the council that we want to get our streets fixed, but it just seems like it takes an awful long time.
Well, the fact of the matter, when you're running a construction contract, you sign a contract with a contractor, and your ability to dictate to them is very limited.
That's why I'm saying, what do we need to do before we sign that to give us a little more leverage? I guess is what I'm trying to think. I don't know, maybe this isn't the right time to be talking about it.
I'm not aware of anything, but if we do have somebody that is really not diligently prosecuting the work, and we had a situation very much like that back in 2015, we terminated that contractor for cause because it was just not a sustainable situation, and their progress was so deficient that we felt it warranted termination for cause. Now, we've been in litigation with them ever since, and that's the risk you take. But if you get into a situation where somebody is really egregiously not prosecuting the work, that's the avenue you have to go.
Mayor, can I add a couple of things real quick? So I did speak with Jeff about this contract the other day. One thing we're going to look to see before the contract is executed is the time. We're going to put in the contract that the contractor has to work sun up to sundown. That language is not in our contracts today. So, and that you asked, what can we do before we even let the project out for construction? The actual wording in the contract needs to be reflective of what we want, which is we want crews working from the companies from sun up to sundown. We'll also ask them, can they do 6 days a week? That may cost us more, but at a minimum, they have to work the 5 days a week, and we can look for Saturdays going forward if the budget can allow it. What that does is it makes sure the crews are out there from the companies from that sun up to sundown, and if they're there on the 6th day of the week, that shortens the time frame overall. So we'll look at that before this contract's executed. I talked to Jeff about that the other day, and Miles is going to help as well. And then when it comes to the businesses, I have to talk to the team about this still, but what we're going to try to do on this project and do it for any project that has a significant business impact is have a website so that the businesses and the community can track the progress of the project. So there'll be a website established just for this project, and each week there'll be an update to the project's scope of work, the calendar, are we on schedule or not. Also, in the case of this one, there's a lot of businesses, so we're going to get an exhaustive business list via email, and we'll email them weekly updates on how the project's going. Is it on schedule? What did we say we were going to do this week, and did we do it? We'll send them pictures. So this project, this type of project, not just for the traveling public and the community, but especially for the businesses, we need to over-communicate. It's a key thing. And so I'll be working with Jeff to make sure that happens on this project.
Good, thank you. That's good news. Mr. Hernandez?
This also has to do with item number 11 in the same kind of scenario, right? You do have businesses on here that would need the work to go quickly. And from my own personal experience, I was one of the people that made the phone calls complaining that they weren't working. And that was on Yorktown. And there'd be days where nobody'd be there and nothing was happening. And I'm pretty sure Fred Brazelton and Wendy out there could attest the same thing. They work on that street as well, where nothing was happening. Now, if you ask them, they pointed us, saying, well, we can't get the inspections done, and we can't, or if there's a change order, it takes a long time to get change orders processed. So I guess the question I had here, if we do have changes, for example, there's a pipe that wasn't planned to be there and it's there, and you got to figure out what it is, do we have an expedited process to work through those change orders if these things come to fruition?
Absolutely, we do. And in fact, as you mentioned on Yorktown, there was a situation on Yorktown where we actually did an emergency declaration because
to the drainage pipe.
That major culvert crossing there, we had a significant quantity overrun in the amount of rehab. We left that in place. We didn't demolish that and replace it with a new culvert pipe. I still think that was a good call, but there was a significant amount more work. And we didn't want that contractor to demobilize and remobilize, so we did an emergency declaration that allowed city manager to sign a change order that would have had to go to city council. So we cut that time down. So yes, we can absolutely do that, and we've done that on multiple projects where we run into a change situation above $100,000, but we can't afford the delay of.
So
bringing that
just
to
in
council.
terms of operating procedures, what would the time frame be from the time something comes up and you have a change order that needs to be addressed? What would that time frame be? 24 hours, 48 hours? What would that?
If it's something that's on the critical path and it's going to stop progress, we will give a contractor immediate notification.
Okay.
That's never happened. That's never happened.
Oh, it has happened. It's.
I can cite 4 or 5 examples of where the jobs were held up because the change orders weren't approved. And again, you've got recourse for the contractors. If there's a road contractor, and I'm sorry, Mayor, you didn't call on me.
That's right. Hold those thoughts. Let's get this.
Okay. Well,
we want everybody to have
we'll go into that, and that's kind of what
I'm
I'm
about to say we
referring
don't
to.
do that all the time. A lot of times it takes time to process, but it's not on the critical path a lot of times.
Right. So that's what I want to make sure that we have those procedures in place so we can address those. Also, you know, and during my course of what I did, I made many travels to Dallas, Fort Worth, and to Houston, and they do night work. Even here, TxDOT did the overlays on Weber at night the entire time. Is there some requirement that we can't have them work at night, or have, you know, shift work that they could work at night, especially in this area where it's not residential?
If it's not residential, we will allow it. We have allowed it in the past, and you know, this would be a candidate in those areas where you don't have residences. But where you allow the night work and there are residences, it's usually a problem. There are certain projects where we're thinking about that. Airline is another one between SBID and McCardle that we're considering allowing that to be night work.
The impact to mobility in this area, it's one of our main arteries, as you know. We should try and minimize the impact, especially for the business area that rely on traffic. If their traffic's not going through for the restaurant, they're not going to get any business. So I think for us, it's important that we authorize that and allow them to move through that as quickly as possible. Thank you. And that's for item number 11 as well.
Now, Mr. Garza. Oh, no, Ms. Wahardo, I'm sorry.
Thank you. So along with my colleagues, I'm deeply concerned about the small, they're all small businesses, you know, on that corridor there, and it's just a heavily trafficked area. And I think all the things we hear the same thing for, you know, every project, which are some things they're not in your control, our control, but the contractors. But as the mayor said, we have to be able to do something because we cannot put these people out of business. And I know you agree with that, but I think one of the things for us that would be helpful is if we could get, in this case, you have 20 months of construction, so a quarterly, I don't know what would be feasible, update so that we know, not in month 19 and not when all the calls come in that, you know, they're going out of business because of this, that, or the other, but maybe quarterly report so that we know that we are on budget and on time. And if some of these things are happening within those months, then we know, at least we know, and then we can do something to address them at that time, opposed to after the fact. I mean, Mr. Zanoni, I don't know how you feel about that. I'm not trying to micromanage, but again, the small businesses is what concerns me, as we heard earlier.
Yeah. It concerns us too, Councilwoman. So as I mentioned, we're going to be working to do weekly updates, and we can certainly send those to you, and then we can brief you in our council meetings or outside of that in a quarterly format with more information if you'd like. But this type of a project is going to need a weekly update to the businesses. That's what we're going to be doing via email, and we can certainly forward that to you. There'll also be a website on this project that shows a timeline and where we are along the continuum, so that people know. A lot of this is we just have to let people know what the schedule is and how we're doing on that schedule. And so communication, over communicating is what's going to be critical for success in this project. And we know the tightness of it. This is a very congested area, and there's a lot of businesses, and so if we communicate with the public and they know we're on track, I think it'll be a lot better than not doing that. So we can extend that to the council as well, Councilwoman.
I appreciate that. Okay.
Just as a matter of question, and it's been a while, and I've glanced back and forth. Are we completely through with the Corona Drive? Is it open?
Yes, sir.
No barricades whatsoever?
Yes, sir.
Okay, because that would have been a nightmare if you started this and had that corona still.
The last thing was that driveway. That was lingering. We had some issues with it.
Last time I was there, I still saw some, but I didn't know exactly how much was left. But you've got it completely open now.
It's completely open. We're still not administratively complete on that. We're still working punch list items.
Traffic's not going through
all lanes are
barricades
open, and the driveway into Island Gate Plaza is open.
Okay. Mr. Garza.
Yeah, Jeff, the concern I have is when the design engineering, and you've got penalties for the contractor, but when the design engineers who are supposed to do their due diligence and go out there and do site survey work in order to determine where all the utilities are, and they come up with some mistakes in their design, or they miss something that should have been obvious, and then you got delays and you got cost overruns, you got change orders, and it takes a long time for the engineering office or for city staff to make a decision about whether to grant that change order. You may save, you may negotiate $100,000 or $200,000 off the price of what that change order could have cost, but you're causing all these small businesses all that additional revenue because they've got to wrestle with it. I know that happened over an airline in Williams, and for firsthand. I know that we had a huge issue over here at Navigation and 37 because we tried to change that into a stormwater project, and it wound up getting delayed. We were going to try to interrupt a Valero high-pressure line because we thought we were going to be able to do that, and that was not doable. And I've seen it in various other projects. And I know when I first got on the council, the first calls I got was from businesses on Staples. The gentleman was talking about Beamers being put out of business because of the delays in the project. And there were some issues there that the design engineer missed related to also some communications lines or some telecommunication lines. And Bay, I think, did a great job of recovering and still completing that project in relatively short order. But that's the biggest thing, is that there are things that we can do on our side in order to be able to make sure that the design engineers do all the work that they need to do in order so the contractor doesn't have the delays that he has out there in the field. And that's whatever we do on the front end is going to save us on the back end, in my opinion. And if we're not doing that and we're just looking for ways to penalize the contractor, then I think there should be penalties in there for the engineers too, because again, that costs not just us, but it costs the small business people.
You're absolutely correct that a lot of these problems are made at the design stage, and sometimes they do cost us time during construction to resolve them. That is a true statement.
All right, Mr. Barrera.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. First off, thank you, Peter, for number one, opening up the line of communication to the business owners. That I'm sure that's a frustrating thing for them. I know it was frustrating for them in Corona. Number one, because of all the. I'm sure they were. I had talked to a couple of people in the event that they're frustrated because they're told one thing and then it doesn't happen, and so then they have to call again. And time is important for them. If you have a small business owner and they're running their own business and they've got to take the time to follow up on us, then we've already failed. We've already failed specifically when we set a timeline. And I've already talked to a couple of business owners that have already indicated that this is already behind its original timeline of what they were told when they asked questions about Corona. So we need to make sure, like I said, thank you so much for wanting to over-communicate with them, but we need to take responsibility for that because we don't want to waste any more of their time or inconvenience them the way we are. And I hope I don't sound condescending because I don't want to reiterate what everybody said, but I think it has to be said, is that we need to take responsibility for every failure, because even if it's a contractor, it's still our fault because it's us that's letting the project. How do we calculate LDs? Liquidated damages. I'm sorry, no jargon.
Yeah. Well, we look at it's mostly what our cost is involved. They're in the $1,000, $1,200 range. I don't know what they are for this project. They can't be punitive. Legal's going to say they're not enforceable if they're punitive. You can't say, oh, it's $1 million a day unless you can demonstrate that you have actual damages of $1 million a day.
Okay. So I guess roughly $1,000 a day, because you said what, 1,200, something like that?
It's 1,000 or 1,200. This one's probably 1,200, 1,250.
Now I saw that we bid it with additional time. Now, there was a big disparity between the low bidder for the additional time for savings because, like you said, contractors, and I've heard it in the community, that they put in liquidated damages into the contract because they don't feel that they're going to be able to complete it on time.
I've heard that too.
And so I guess that's the thing to calculate. You know, if it's 100 days and we're looking at, what's the budget on this project again? 12 million or what was it? 14 million. So if you're looking at 100 days, I mean, that's $100,000, you know, off of a $12 million project. You're kind of wondering what's the profit there. So I'm sure they have to balance that. And then the other thing is I hate the word reiterate because I get frustrated with my council members when they say the same thing over. But when Rudy said the same thing about the calls I get are, I can't get the inspector back out on the job. I got a problem and I have a dispute with them and I'm not going to move until we get this disputed because it's going to cost me money. Or that contract, that inspector doesn't know what he's doing. He's making us do this, and it's gonna alter the project at the end. I mean, we get the calls, so we have to be very conscientious that we have somebody that we can count on. So that way, I'm not calling you or calling Mark or calling Peter that we have to get move on this. And I just feel that we haven't taken enough ownership to make sure that it gets done. Because once again, profit margins are small. I'm sure the rent is very high on Everhart because of all the traffic that goes through there. And if those restaurants and those, you know, barber shops and those flower shops, they've got to have so much volume to cover that overhead. And if there's not customers coming in there, then all of a sudden we've eaten up their profit margin. I don't mean to be beating a dead horse, but you know, to have the inspectors out there timely to address it. It's just this is just too there's too many variables where there's too many people involved that we can't afford to be the one that looks to be incompetent when this is being handled, and we need to be forthright with the customers. I mean with the business owners. The same thing, the turnaround on change orders to get them approved. You know, you and I have already talked about a couple of other projects, and it just seems like I said the same thing. When it seems like we're behind on all those projects, and we're the common denominator. And so we've got to manage those through. So I guess that's one thing, if we can just address, and I know we're not going to do it today, and I know all my colleagues here are very enthusiastic about getting this work started and getting it done. But over communication, just as you said. Number two, you know, ensuring that we are adequately staffing and we're actually adequately ensuring that that there's no holdup as a result of our challenges that we have with the city. If there's a change order, that it's addressed adequately, and if there's anything that deviates from the timeline, that we know. So, thanks for letting me stand on my soapbox.
Mr. Roy.
One of the things that, you know, all the things that have been said, I agree. But one of the issues that we can control, and I feel that we're not doing a good job, and it's not consistent at all, is the fact that when you drive down some of these areas like Everhart, and there is no signage or anything promoting that business there. I mean, the other day, I think I went around the block twice trying to find my way into Silverado. There is no consistency. If you're telling me that staff gets out there and staff basically does an inspection and looks at the site, there's got to be something there that is a requirement that if you're going to sit there and work on somebody's in front of their storefront, that you make sure that there's appropriate signage to represent their business. And we've heard time and time again here, going from the Red Roof guy, and I can give other examples, where there was no signage out there or no directions helping somebody get to that business so they can have customers, so hopefully they can withstand, you know, the construction time. Shoring up the construction time, that's great. But something as simple as making sure that across the board that we are consistent with putting signage out, or maybe looking at new ways to be able to have for inexpensive ways to have signage there to help them stay in business, that's something that we ought to be looking at doing. And I don't know if that's something that in your contracts, do you basically sit there and make that the responsibility of the contractor, but the city, the staff should be policing that?
Absolutely.
And I can
It is
tell you,
our
it's not done.
responsibility, and we should police it, and we will ensure that's done.
And it's not
here.
done now. I mean, you know what? You shouldn't have to almost have a wreck to try to enter into somebody's business because there's construction and you can't find the entrance or exit.
That Silverado case, just by the way, I've spent about half my morning working on that and getting an amended traffic control plan. There will be a blue sign there, and the problem was when you get down to 2 lanes and you're close to the intersection like that, they were worried about the left-turning traffic into Silverado blocking up the intersection, and that's why they didn't have that blue sign. But we're amending the traffic control plan, and hopefully it's going to be something that everybody can live with. That's happening as we speak.
I just think we need to be consistent throughout the city. You know, we're going to, one particular area, they may have great signage there. And because they're a large anchor tenant somewhere, you know, but we need to do the same thing, even if it's a smaller community with a mom and pop type store. We need to have the same diligence.
I agree with you completely. And, you know, if there's anybody that feels like they need a sign, I'd say, give them my cell phone number. We'll get a sign out there for them, post haste.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Smith.
Thank you. And I agree with Mr. Roy. I think traffic control is very important. That's what we're talking about here, that we need to put a lot of emphasis on there. And Councilman Garza and your comments on as far as the decision-making on there, just working hard that we're keeping that. But we're sitting here talking about a very complex issue. And when you go into a street, there's going to be times that we all know. So our whole goal should be to shorten that amount of time. One thing we haven't talked about, we talked about the penalty, liquidated damages, but also have an incentive clause in there. Right now, there's no incentive to get it done before time. And what are we talking about? It's all about the time. But to go back to the complexity on here, so we're sitting here talking about this, and one of the thoughts is to work, say, a 12-hour day in the summertime, 6 days a week. Well, if you're doing that in our heat, your productivity is going to drop through the floor. So we're not going to gain that much except for a lot bigger bill on there. This particular job we're looking at has a tremendous amount of underground on there. So we've got $5 million of paving and $8 or $9 million underground. So as we're looking at these jobs, the more underground we put in there, the longer it's going to take. We're replacing a 48-inch water line on there, and how many months is that going to add? Concrete versus asphalt, that's coming up. You go with concrete, it's going to take longer. So as we're talking about all of this up on this dais, I think it's a very complex issue with a lot of variables in there. And we ought to spend a lot of time studying whatever we're suggesting on here and the things that can happen, with the understanding that our goal is to try to speed up the process and the accessibility to those businesses that do it. But understand that anything we're going to do is going to come at a price. And so we have to look at all of those elements and how can we do the best. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Hunter.
What else can we think of? Is there anything else? Since I'm the last one. Some of the stuff that I hear, we all hear the same stuff. Something else that we hear about is not signs being in the right of way or vision. So just awareness of sign placement, I think that should be emphasized a lot. That would help a lot. But I'm not going to go any longer because I think y'all have heard what we've had to say. So thank you, though. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate, I know you guys are going to get all of the calls, and please feel free to contact me immediately if there's any concerns people have out there, and we'll absolutely do our best to try and address those concerns.
Mr. Smith, did you? All right, Mr. Barrera.
Thank you. So you said you were considering evenings. I mean, what are you considering?
When you're not near residences, allowing them to work evenings.
I'm sorry, say again?
when you're not near residences, allowing them to work evenings.
So are we going to do that? I mean,
Yes.
there's a large stretch of that. And,
Yes.
Because I know I live off of Saratoga and Everhart, and they did all that resurfacing of Saratoga. They started at 9 o'clock at night and finished at 5 in the morning. So I don't know that that's feasible, but allowing them or encouraging them, I'm not getting a lot of finality when you say we're going to allow them.
Well, it's a permissive thing. We have hours of work that are stipulated in the contract, and we would relax that in an effort to expedite the contract.
And is there a way to incent them to do so, or because
I'd say liquidated damage avoidance is the.
Well, once again, I'm saying to incent them, like Councilman Smith said, to incent them to finish the project early. If they were working into an evening, I know that may be more attractive to the small businesses that are there, so that way there's some level of accessibility.
I would say that we would take that on in a case-by-case basis if there's certain aspects of the work that would be better done at night and work with the contractor. We've done it on things like that water line on Alameda. We didn't want to do that work in the intersections during the daytime, so we had that work scheduled at night.
Okay, well, I know you guys will keep us posted. I know that's been stressed enough, so, all right, thank you.
Well, just in defense, I mean, you're not going to be able to compare Everhart with the retopping of Saratoga Boulevard. I mean, there wasn't any underground construction. It would just come along, lay 4 or 5 inches asphalt, or 3 or 2 or whatever it is, come down, smooth it out, put some new paint. I mean, I back up to Saratoga, and I mean, they worked through the night, and except when they were backing up, it was pretty quiet. You know, but you do hear the beep, beep, beep when they're backing up. They sure back up a long way sometimes, but I mean, there's no real construction going on. It's just an overlay. That's all it amounted to. So It's hard to compare that with backhoes and everything else getting in there. But anyway, Ms. Guajardo?
Quick question. Who's doing the work on Old Brownsville Road, or Old Robstown Road, I'm sorry?
That's Haas Anderson Construction.
Okay, and then Yorktown again? I should know this, but...
Yorktown was Bay.
Bay, so Haas and Bay. Okay, and the other thing, the reason I ask is not necessarily them, but in general, if we have, and I think this was brought up quite some time back, certain companies that have a history of constantly, for whatever reason, back to what everybody's saying, I think we need to take that constantly being, months out. I know those 2 projects they're over, they're past their deadline by months. Then we need to take that in consideration somehow in terms of continuing. I know it's a bid, but we've got to take that in consideration in continuing to do work, for the city, if it isn't to our standard in terms of the time. Thank you.
I agree. I will say this contractor is doing pretty well currently. They've got 2 projects under construction. They did the Chaparral project, which had a very aggressive schedule, and you had the same kind of adjoiner interaction that we're thinking we're going to have on Everhart, and they managed that very well.
All right. Well, I mean, I think we all know it's a complex project, and we appreciate the work you're doing on it and getting it done. I think this is just kind of the culmination that we're getting ready to start a brand new project, and we've all been hearing, and we've got a lot going on in town too. That's another thing. There's lots of opportunities to complain because we're doing a lot of construction. But this is just kind of the crescendo of all the complaints that we've had in the past, and if we can avoid those or minimize them, the board is clean right now. So that's what we're trying to do, is to use this as a demonstration project. And Raytech may be regretting they get the contract, because there's going to be at least 9 sets of eyes looking at them probably every day to see what we can do to be better, delivered on time, under budget. And with the new weekly reporting that the manager is proposing and others, they're going to be under a microscope. And that's not all bad, because we're looking out for the taxpayer and the businesses that support us. But I think everybody in the city that ever has traversed Everhart between Holly and PID or Saratoga will really appreciate the fact that at some point it's really going to be a nice street. But it's a real thrill right now. Okay. Any other comments on item 10?
Move to approve.
Motion is second on item 10. Any public comment? Hearing none. Do you have a comment? Come on down.
Afternoon. My name's Butch Escovedo, and I live on Brasselton's Colonia on Fred's Folly, and I've had to deal with that Yorktown Road. And as a matter of fact, I just made a comment recently to Gil, and you're gonna get tired on sunny days going by there, seeing all that heavy equipment just sitting there with nobody using them. So my hat's off to you guys for listening to the public and taking some action. In the private sector, we don't have the luxury of making the same mistake twice. You know, and somehow in the public sector, that seems to be, you know, the way business is done. And, you know, I don't think the taxpayers can afford that. So, again, I appreciate what you guys are doing and bringing it up. And it's not a matter of blaming somebody. It's a matter of making sure that there's consequences when people make the same mistake twice.
Right,
thank you.
All right, any further discussion? Well, it's a partnership. This is a public entity getting a private sector job contractor to do it. So it's the private sector that we're working with that's the delays, but the public sector needs to be prepared to try to minimize those delays. So it's I can assure you there's probably enough to go around for everybody. Nobody excuse themselves. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, now number 11, 12, 13, and 14. Go ahead.
Well, Mayor, number 11 was in conjunction with number 10 to have the same kind of conversation associated with that, trying to do, you know, there is a section of that it's residential, but there's parts that are not. If we could do the same thing, have procedures for change orders, authorize nights and weekends in those areas so we can get those projects moving. So I'll make a motion to approve item number 11.
11?
11.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, number 12.
Okay, number 12, and this I specifically bring up because I had a conversation with Constance as well as Mark Van Vleck about this particular item. Yes, sir. And it has to do with the budget and how this contract looks versus how it's put in the and just so and correct me if I'm wrong if I'm not explaining this correctly, this is a covering contract that doesn't necessarily need to get its funding from the capital budget. It can be used from the operating budget as well. Is that correct?
This is from the CIP budget, sir.
No, I understand the budget. It's just the contract doesn't require it to come from that budget. Is that correct?
Let me take that one. On we have, for example, like the minor streets IDIQ contract, which is a similar contract, and we actually use multiple funding sources sometimes on that contract. Primarily it supports the street department, but sometimes, for example, you might have things like Parks and Recreation has improvements they want to make on a parking lot, and we'll fund that separately. So yes, you can fund work under the contract from multiple funding sources.
Right. So that's just what I wanted to get across here. So the understanding that this contract is an up to amount, and it doesn't necessarily have to come from capital budgets, but there is funding in the capital budget for this. I believe we have it budgeted at $2 million for this year. It's scheduled for the next following years, but we haven't seen the short-term capital budget plan.
That is correct. And we could very well get, I mean, the same type of situation. Let's say Parks and Recreation had a storm drain that was collapsing in a park. We could issue a delivery order under this contract that would have a separate funding attached to it.
Okay, the other part of that is it's not listed as IDIQ program in the capital budget. and I understand the semantics, but I think it would have allayed some confusion on my part in making sure it matched up with what was in the capital improvement budget. Okay, that's the questions I had for that, and I wanted to make sure it was clear, not to the other council members as well. So I'll make a motion to approve item number 12.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, number 13.
Now, this one is a budget item, and I wanted to make sure I understood how this is working and how we can look at budgeting in the future. This, if you look through our amended budget, money was actually moved from account number 540500, which is reserve appropriations, which had $1.3 million in it in the, I'm sorry, the $1,050,000 in the amended budget, and was transferred into another budget. And this goes back to the budget policy in terms of understanding when money's moved in order to cover some of these things. But having $1.3 million in the approved budget was probably a little bit much for the reserve fund. So if we can assign these to those projects ahead of time and put them in the appropriate accounts, because it really looks almost like a slush fund in having it in a reserve account like that. If you have specific projects that it's going to, it should go in the actual account that it's intended to. Even if you identify the projects, you should at least identify the account it's going into. Does everybody understand what I'm trying to get at there? That we shouldn't have that kind of funding in a reserve account when it should be assigned to a budget.
Yes, sir. What happened in this was we had some $1.3 million worth of projects that we wanted to keep our eye on. The budget was created. This reserve appropriation went down. This allows us to continue to have an aggressive program in improving the facilities posture in this city. We're 85% complete. Getting this generator in is appropriate, but what it was a mechanism which allowed us to track numerous projects here, and that's why we did it.
I understand in the sense of how you approached it to it, but if you were going to assign it to that particular project, it should be assigned to the budget as well. The idea is understanding that when we see an approved budget, we don't, at council, we don't have access to Infor. We don't. So we don't see these transfers on a regular basis. So it doesn't come up until we see an item agenda, and then we start looking, well, I start looking in terms of where that money's coming from and whether or not we have the money for it and where it's budgeted from. If you look at the approved budget, there was only $23,000 in that budget. And then there was amended, and then there were $600,000. Now there's more than that. So it's a matter of tracking where this money's coming from and where it's going. Ultimately, that's our responsibility. We want to make sure I know where that money's coming from. Does that make sense? Okay. Aside from that, I'll make a motion to approve item number, what is this, 13?
13.
All right, there's a motion, second on item 13. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. And let me just remind everybody that, if you've got detailed questions like that, I don't think there's any hesitation about getting the information to you, but we've had, 2 weeks we could get with the folks there, because a lot of times you'll catch them off guard if you don't give them some advance notice you're going to ask them. When you're getting down in the weeds and stuff, that's a little more than, it's our job. That's a policy thing. So, but anyway, try to get those kind of questions asked prior to coming, but if you got questions, feel free to ask them. But I think we want to provide as much time to get as much information out to the council as we can without going there. All right, item number 14.
Item number 14. And Mayor, just in my defense, I did talk to him individually on this. It's just something I thought that needed to be spoken of in open session.
Okay. Item 14.
Okay, item 14, this is more of a legal aspect, and I actually talked to Miles a little bit about this ahead of time, and it has to do with the clause in the agreement that talks about following all Texas and government laws. I appreciate the broadness of it, but specifically I want to make sure that we, in these low-skill labor type contracts, that it includes the language of keeping with all labor laws, U.S. labor laws, specifically the 1986 Immigration Naturalization Act, where we would be held culpable even if it is a contracted work.
Well, and when you brought this issue up several months ago, we actually looked into it, did quite a bit of research on that, and our conclusion is that, yeah, labor laws were a concern, and especially looking at that Walmart case, thank you for bringing that to our attention. We did look at that and looked at a fairly broad comparison of what might be the panoply of cases, looked at the statute and the intent requirements under that statute, and when we looked at that, we decided that given the very broad panoply of potential laws, that especially federal laws that might apply to contracts, I can't predict what might happen in the future. So the way we addressed that was to just have as broad of a possible clause as we possibly could, and that was why you see the clause that's in number 23 that we settled on, which actually was already in many of the city contracts, which says contractor agrees to comply with all federal, Texas, and city laws in the performance of this agreement. The applicable law for any legal disputes arising is the state of Texas, but that very broad contractor agrees to comply with all federal, Texas, and city laws in the performance of this agreement, not just the agreement, all these laws apply to this agreement, we think adequately protects the city, especially with respect to this type of contract, where when you also have number 18, a clause that allows us to terminate this contract at will on 30 days notice. So if we have notice that there's any kind of legal violation that we feel is a significant concern, and we don't want to apply number 23 for 23 for some reason, such as maybe lack of proof, we can always move back to number 18 and terminate without cause.
Okay, I understand. I think we should do a little bit more specificity specifically on that, just considering the hot button nature of it in the national media, as the national attention it's getting, considering the situation we have. I think it's important that we cover those areas and make sure. I know we have indemnification requirements on our agreements as well, but it's something we should be very specific about. Thank you. And I'll make a motion to accept number 14.
There's a motion second on item 14. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
Oh, thank you, Ben.
Huh?
I just asked who seconded, and Mr. Molina said he did.
Yeah. So we got 2 votes for a second. We got a unanimous vote on passage. Is that right? Okay. Well, that should complete our consent agenda. We've had our lunch, and I know some people were interested in the board and committee appointments, but we've got a couple of public hearings that they need in board and committee appointments. I mean, unless somebody's got some burning.
One board candidate here.
Well, which one are they interested in? Let's try to get that one done. All right, we've got one appointment to the, let's see, Board of Adjustments. That's
so we're going to do one appointment and not. Seems like we were.
Well, let's just make the no, I'm sorry. Let's go ahead and get these 2 public hearings done, because these are pretty significant, and we appreciate the appointments, but I think we want to get these done. Go to item 18. It's a public hearing. There's no action on the hearing today. Is that right?
No, there's action on the hearing. Yeah, it's a first reading. It's a public hearing and first reading ordinance.
Do I need to open the public hearing then? Or wait
Yes,
for their
you do.
presentation?
We usually do it after the presentation.
All right. We'll have the presentation, then we'll open the public hearing, and the public, if anybody has any comments in favor of or in opposition to, or any suggestions, you'll be given the opportunity. So let's listen to the presentation, and then we'll open up the public hearing.
Good afternoon, Mayor McComb and City Council members. I'm Annika Yankee, Senior City Planner in the Planning Department.
This is number 18, if you happen to be looking on your agenda, which number we're looking at.
This is number 18, correct. The public hearing for an amendment to the urban transportation plan in the area north of the London ISD schools, and that's between the Oso Creek and FM 43, and between FM 763 and State Highway 286. The purpose of these amendments is to update the transportation plan in response to proposed development. With more information known about development in this area, a closer look of the proposed street network and street alignments became necessary. I do want you to know that we began this effort with a stakeholder meeting that we held at London ISD, and we were happy to have approximately 40 people in attendance. And following that meeting, we met individually with several stakeholders and landowners to review their concerns with these amendments. This is the current urban transportation plan that we began to work from. The study area is approximately 3.85 square miles, or about 2,400 acres, and predominantly outside the city limits. The current plan shown here requires 182 acres of right-of-way and would create 18 miles of streets. Keep in mind that none of these streets shown on this map here are built to the proposed transportation plan standard, and the majority don't exist at all just yet. But some small sections of these street right-of-ways have already been secured. For reference, what we call arterial streets are shown in red lines, and they range from 100 feet to 130 feet in proposed width. The streets shown with green lines are the smaller collector streets, as we call them, and range from 60 feet to 80 feet in proposed width. And collectors generally fill in the grid of arterial streets and lead traffic to the arterials. These are the street types that are contained within this plan. The collector streets that we have as part of this study area are the C1 and C3 collectors and the P1 Parkway. So the C1 is 60 feet of right-of-way, the C3 is 75 feet of right-of-way, and the P1 Parkway is 80 feet of right-of-way with a hike and bike trail. The arterial streets in this study area are the A2 and the A3 arterials. A2 is 100 feet of right-of-way, and A3 is 130 feet of right-of-way. So the right-of-way widths are really what start to add up when I gave you that figure on the acreage contained within these proposed streets. The proposed amendments, which I'll review in the next slides, will eliminate bridge construction. They will reduce the right-of-way dedication that's required of private development by up to 45%. It will reduce the miles of street construction by 27% and adjust street alignments around development that has already occurred and that is proposed. Here are the proposed amendments showing the deletions and realignments. The Planning Commission and Transportation Advisory Commission have weighed in on this proposal. So I know it looks a little bit like a spaghetti bowl, but I'm going to outline these changes here. The proposed amendments are to eliminate Oso Parkway as a street, but keep the associated hike and bike trail as part of the hike and bike plan. And this recommendation was to remove the street was because the floodplain width is quite wide in this area, and it's not necessarily ideal to be building a street in a flood zone. The second amendment is to eliminate the bridge that would connect to the future FM 49. This is near Melvin Estates, or through Melvin Estates, since houses have been constructed in that area, so that could be quite costly to keep that on the plan. And also we would reduce the street from an A2 arterial to a C3 collector as it extends to FM 43. We would be eliminating Greenwood Drive south of the creek, including the bridge crossing there, which is just 1 mile away from the Crosstown Expressway. And we would reduce, north of the creek, we would reduce Greenwood from an A2 arterial to a C3 collector. We would realign the extension of County Road 26. County Road 26 is right there and exists. So we would realign its extension to match already dedicated right-of-way between Melvin Estates and London Club Estates. We'd also recommend reducing it from a A2 arterial to a C3 collector. And it'll terminate at County Road 33. We would realign the southernmost east-west collector, this one, to match, to match already dedicated right-of-way in London Club Estates, and also to split the street between property lines. We would shift and shorten the collector that connects between the city property and the Coastal Bend Community Foundation. We would eliminate collectors that go through the London ISD schools. And we would shift the westernmost collector a little bit farther west so that development could occur on both sides of the street, making it more financially feasible. Now, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the proposed amendments, but had a few changes, and they're circled in yellow. They suggested that a bridge be added at County Road 35, so this area, and that street would lead to the London ISD schools. And at the same time, they recommended that street right-of-way be upgraded from 60 feet to 75 feet, so from a C1 to a C3. The Planning Commission also, at the request of a developer, adjusted the alignment of this collector, but during this process, the proposed development has actually changed, and so the staff and the Transportation Advisory Commission looked at another request from this developer, and we are recommending the elimination of the curved intersection altogether, and we are recommending 2 90-degree intersections instead. The exhibit here illustrates some of the analysis that went into the recommendation to eliminate the bridges in the study area. Staff believes that the 2 bridges, that with the 2 bridges eliminated, that's at Greenwood Drive and FM 49, that we have still, we're still maintaining a comparable spacing to what we see on the south side of town, east of the Crosstown Expressway. And we do have some concerns with the cost of bridge construction as well. Shown in green is where the Planning Commission recommended the bridge lead to the London ISD schools. We had some concerns with that location just because you'd be crossing the creek, and bridge construction is expensive, and then it would end at London ISD. So when we were looking at which intersections, which streets should cross the Oso Creek, we felt that the street needed to have regional, add to regional mobility and connect farther south. Also, the floodplain is quite wide in that area. Our stormwater master plan has a ditch that would parallel that road leading up to Oso Creek. So the Planning Commission recommendation was also reviewed by the Transportation Advisory Committee, and the recommendation that's proposed in the ordinance in your packets is one that came from the staff and Transportation Advisory Commission. However, the City Council, as always, has the opportunity to make adjustments to the proposed recommendation and the ordinance that's in your packet. So these recommendations are consistent with city policy and city plans. They maintain an adequate and efficient street network for the proposed land uses. They minimize right-of-way dedication requirements from private landowners and reduces the miles of public streets. It also addresses alignment issues. I'm available if you have any questions.
All right, we'll open the public hearing, and I'd like to ask if there's anyone from the public that would like to make any comments before because you may ask some questions that the council want to respond to when they do their questioning. So, Ms. Brazelton, you want to come up, or anyone else that has an interest in making a comment in favor of or in opposition to, now's your time.
Good afternoon. My name is Fred Brazelton, 5337 Yorktown. We are a landowner and a land developer in the London area, and we do support the recommendation of the staff and of the TAC. We think Dan and Hanukkah and the staff has done a great job of thoroughly investigating the area, and we support their actions and would like for you to support it also. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Anyone else have any comments in favor of or in opposition to from the public? It's a public hearing, public comment. All right, seeing none, Mr. Hernandez, you got a question?
Yes. On the, there's, the big difference here is that Planning Commission recommendation to have the bridge, to keep the bridge, connecting it, and then having it widen to a C3, and then having it dead end at London. It seems a little counterintuitive to widen the street to have it dead end. What kind of additional cost are we going to see here with the bridge and requiring the widening of that road?
At this planning level, we really haven't looked at the cost associated with a bridge design like this.
Ballpark it.
I don't know if I have any of my engineering friends here.
10
million plus. I mean, 10 million plus, I would.
But just to have it dead end is kind of unusual, widening the road and then knowing it's going to dead end. Is that something normal?
Yeah, I mean, we also looked at, if you did keep the bridge, I think one alternative would be to just terminate it, the C3 designation at that first collector that it would hit, with the idea that folks heading south would have to make a left to come over to the County Road 33 anyway. So you wouldn't necessarily need to change the whole designation to the C3. You could leave a majority of it at the C1 level if you chose to keep the bridge.
And your reason for eliminating it in your original plan was because there was another one close by, is that correct?
Correct, yeah. In our analysis, we felt like we were comfortable with the current spacing that we had with 763 and all the improvements that TxDOT made on Crosstown to add capacity there, and then the likelihood of development that we would see to the north in the Greenwood area. We didn't feel like we were going to see that same level of density that you may see in the south side, to the east and the south side between Everhart and Weber, where they're not as impacted by the floodplain. There's significant, if you see on the map, there's significant impact from the floodplain kind of just north of that Greenwood area. That all comes through that Lavola Creek area where we have had issues with flooding in the past. So we just don't think we're going to see that level of density in this area that we have to the east, where we feel adequate spacing of bridges already.
Not to mention there's a wastewater treatment plant over there. And
that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Smith?
Thank you. The difference between the Planning Commission and the staff recommendation, you have that east-west road that's running parallel to Weber on there. And so in the Planning Commission, they cut the double intersection out. Can you explain that a little bit more, that why that you recommended?
Sure. This change, I think, really had to do with timing of the developer who was looking at buying land in that area. At first, he didn't own the entire intersection.
Okay.
And so we were trying to be fair to each landowner, that they each, bear some responsibility of building this intersection. But now that the whole area is part of his proposal, and that happened after the Planning Commission recommendation, the developer came forward with a suggestion to have two 90-degree intersections. Part of the discussion around that is there's an argument that the curve is not, there's some concern that a curve is not safe for traffic that's going to make it all the way from 763 to Crosstown, that there'd be speeding. We do think that these 90-degree intersections will help slow, cut through traffic. So that's why we were amenable to, staff was amenable, and Transportation Commission was amenable to the developer's second request.
And also, a non-90-degree intersection has its own issues.
Right. We would require 90-degree intersections
At the actual intersection.
At the actual intersection.
Okay. Thank you.
Hey, Mr. Barrera.
Thank you, Mayor. So, I guess, Mr. Brazelton, I just want to be clear. I guess you're comfortable with the staff recommendation, not the addition that the Planning Commission recommended. I just want to, we can acknowledge that you said yes.
Yeah.
You don't have to get up. Yeah, I think we can acknowledge whether you said yes or no if you want to get up.
Staff and the TAC recommendation is what he's supporting on that.
Yeah, I just want to verify that.
Yes, sir. We're in favor of the staff TAC recommendation, not the Planning Commission.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to be clear on that.
Okay.
And yeah, my question's for staff now. Thank you, sir. So I guess I'm with you that I think that, once again, the development, the area is not there. I mean, it's not developed. It's not like there's going to be, I think once again, we end up, with regard to what the Planning Commission is their intent, although I understand, it's, the area hasn't been developed as of yet, and then we may be overbuilding. Obviously, I'm with you with 286 and the expansion of it. I think there'll be plenty of accessibility along with the expansion of County Road 33 to be able to provide adequate accessibility to the area. So, and once again, with regard to that additional little changing from a 90-degree angle to correct that little, to add the curve, once again, I think as the market requires it, then that we can be done at that period, instead of creating more undue additional requirements for the developer at this time. So I'd support the staff and the TAC recommendation as well. Thank you.
Mr. Garza?
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I agree. Right now at this point, I'll support staff's and the TAC recommendation. I just, looking at the spacing of some of the C3s, the collectors, they're against some of the arterials that we have currently on the south side. The only concern that I have is, at what point do you look at this transportation plan and compare it against what might need to be done in terms of stormwater runoff? I'm being told stormwater runoff on south of the Oso is going to need to be different than what we've done on the north side. Everything's going to be related to either retention ponds or something different. Is the spacing of these collectors, is this going to interfere with or reduce the options of stormwater runoff?
We don't think so. In this area, I think we just have it was the draft stormwater master plan for this quarter, or not, sorry, it is adopted now for this particular area that we did for the wastewater master plan for this lift station that's on County Road 33. That did include a portion of stormwater, and it did show just 2 ditch systems that would be heading north from Weber, and we will have, just like some of the other collector crossings that we have over ditches, we will have smaller little bridges that we'll have to accommodate when we're crossing the ditch. But I think these projects have both, with Brazelton's and with the Moses, I think they're tapping into a ditch that currently, it's a small ditch that runs from the school directly up to Oso Creek. I think that ditch will just be expanded to accommodate those 2 developments. And then there will be another ditch that would be required east of County Road 33, and that will bisect, obviously, the city property to get to Oso Creek, but will be needed for development of that community foundation, that corner piece. But the ditch system...
Is that going to create some capacity issues in Oso Creek? I thought we were already pretty much at capacity with the current developments already in the on the north side of the Oso Creek. If you're going to build drainage ditches, are they... and they're going to be going into Oso Creek, are you going to have some issues?
There still should be some, capacity, retention, tension is something to consider also for just water quality, is something that we should be looking at anyway for public projects and development and ways to retain some of that water. But I don't know that we have any issues or concerns with some of these ditch systems that have such close access to Oso Parkway. For some of the ditch systems, I think within that Staples corridor, may be more critical to look at some detention down there. I know a few of the projects already have had to include detention as part of the design. Coves, Lago Vista, the 2 newer projects to the north both have some detention.
We had flooding issues all the way back, also Creek all the way back to La Boya and Las Colonias. So anyway, I guess I'll wait for the stormwater discussion to come later, but this is something that you need to take.
It did come out during the public process. You know, some of the people that are very familiar with this land and farm this land did indicate some concern with the east-west collectors. You're right. And I think now that we know more about development, that the heart of this area is already does have preliminary plats proposed where that developer is going to have to incorporate the stormwater master plan and phasing of temporary, you know, possibly temporary drainage ditches, depending on where they start building. So I think those developers are all at once having to address drainage and streets in their preliminary plats, if that helps address. That doesn't address the capacity of the creek, though.
Yeah, I know. That'll be a concern going forward for me. All right, thank you.
And it may have just been I misunderstood, but I thought I heard you say at some point one of the difference between the staff and TAC recommendation, one of them was going to terminate at Oso Parkway? Or, I mean, you got, where did I misunderstand that? There's no termination of Oso Parkway anywhere, is there?
We are eliminating Oso Parkway as part of this proposal. More so that Oso
eliminating
Parkway.
It. What do you mean by that?
So Oso Parkway, as shown in the current plan, follows the floodway of the creek, and this area.
That's the green dot.
Yes, it's a green dotted line, and so because of the width of the flood zones in this area, we're suggesting. Well, you had Oso Parkway, and then you had a collector pretty close to Oso Parkway, just south of it. And so essentially what we're saying is that one collector will be it won't be Oso Parkway, but it will serve for mobility in the northern part of that area.
Yeah, we had significant changes with the adoption of the new floodplain maps. The 100-year floodplain got much larger in this section. We evaluated and we just felt the constructability of it was going to be very difficult, and then sustainability of that road would be, just probably wouldn't be in the public's interest to do it. But we were able to find a collector system that we felt to the south there that could provide that same service level.
So you're driving down Oso Parkway and it terminates. Where do you go? I mean, I'm sorry to be so dumb, but I'm having a hard time if I'm driving down the road and you've just eliminated it altogether.
You mean?
Mayor, I think you're.
Or do you merge Oso?
Mayor, what the point that was being made by the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation is converting this to a C3 and then terminating it at this point. That's the point that it would cross the Oso with a bridge and then terminate down there. And the idea of spending a lot of those resources to build a bridge and a large collector only to have it tee into another collector was not good utilization of the resources. I think that's where you kind of got crossed up on that.
Okay, but you're going to have Oso Parkway, the whole length of Oso Parkway. You're not terminating anywhere.
Not terminating Oso Parkway, but just doing away with it and turning it into the hike and bike on the south side.
Whoa. We're taking off cars and putting on bicycles?
Well.
On Oso Parkway?
But, okay, Oso Parkway doesn't exist in this area. So if you go east of Crosstown Expressway, that's Cabinus Airfield. If you go west of FM 763, which is west of our study area, it is on the plan currently, but it's not built west of this area. So we will need to address in the future what Oso Parkway looks like farther west of this study area. You're right about that. Yes. But we are recommending, the blue dotted line would be just the trail that's normally associated with Oso Parkway that we're familiar with, that's in King's Crossing, Terramar, those subdivisions. That trail would remain as part of our hike and bike system, or plan, I should say.
Okay. Well, there's no road.
There are there's none of this exists yet.
It's just paper.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
That goes to the dump.
Okay. Okay. The other, and I'm just trying to think of the rationale. in the planning commission thought process is that they were wanting to put in that curve which you took out. Planning commission, the staff and the TAC recommended against that. But I mean, haven't we just had experience at Rodfield Road and Yorktown and Airline and Rodfield where we've eliminated those kind of curved intersections to make them a 90-degree intersection? We're spending a lot of money to straighten out a curved intersection. And why would they recommend a curved intersection?
Well, yeah, I think it's Lipes and Airline that we had to straighten out. So again, no matter what, we would have required a 90-degree intersection. I know it looks small on the map, but that is probably like 600 to 800 feet of separation between those intersections. The curve was for contiguity, to get people without having to come to full stops initially. And
But the purpose of an intersection is to let people pass safely, and if they're entering in a curve, that's kind of dangerous. That's why we're straightening them out at Rodfield and Airline and
right.
Airline in Yorktown, right?
Right.
There
Again,
would be
we would have
curves coming
required.
into.
And we might want to try that on, what's that street there on Shoreline that comes right there by Univision that comes in, it's got the big curve that's pretty dangerous. Cooper's Alley.
Yeah.
But the Cooper's Alley's got a light. The one down the road doesn't even have a light. That is a bad curve intersection. I don't know who designed that, but they need to go back and look at that. But anyway, that's
So you're right, we're straightening out curves, yeah.
Okay, any other comment? No other comment by the council or the public, then we'll close the public hearing. Is that okay?
Yes.
We'll close the public hearing. Entertain a motion to adopt either the staff and TAC recommendation or the planning commission recommendation.
I'll make a motion to accept the staff and TAC recommendation, not the planning.
I think.
All right, there's a motion and a second
I heard you say it.
to approve the staff and Transportation Advisory Committee recommendation. Any other further discussion by the council?
Good job.
If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it. Get to work. Mr. Brotherton, the sun's still shining. Get out there and start moving dirt. Thank you very much. And thank you, staff, very much. This has been I'm sure, a long, complicated project. So, Mr. Selman had hair when we started. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's just falling out. Okay, the next public hearing is on item 19. It's an ordinance on the Consolidated Annual Action Plan for the Community Development Block Grants, and I think we've all got a book, or do we not?
Yes.
Okay, so Rudy, you're on. Mr. Bentoncourt?
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Council. I'm Rudy Bentoncourt, Director of the Housing and Community Development Department. The item you have before you is a public hearing and first reading ordinance to adopt the fiscal year 2019-2020 annual action plan for the Community Development Block Grant, Emergency Solutions Grant, and Home Investment Partnership